26. Praise Yahuah. All right, so I know there were some questions that a few people had. If anybody else has any questions, please get them ready. But let me scroll through chat here and see if I can find those questions. Give me just a moment here. And just a reminder as well, we don't usually do it nonstop without taking questions. I just wanted to, practice my presentation for Jackson Schneider. So usually I'll stop and pause and take questions at that time. But yeah, I see it's just Claire. It was a bit too fast, but we have it recorded as well. So I'll put it on YouTube to watch at your own pace as well. Does anybody have anything they would like to add as well? Not just questions, If anybody has anything they'd like to add, feel free.
I was just trying to figure out how do you actually go and figure out the actual service through the luminaries, and that's where I got lost at. I do apologize for my questions and a little bit of ignorance. This is quite new to me.
Yeah, no worries, no apologies necessary. So that's kind of what we'd shown through there. It was really just a quick breakdown of everything, through all of our videos that we found. So basically what Marissa was demonstrating was, the luminaries, they're marking Passover as, the speaker star was rising just above the horizon there on our Passover day. The sun, of course, is the Tekufa, the straight line shadow, this theme of Yahuah marking day 4 of creation week.
With knowledge that you just said in your presentation that even the apps are man-made when it comes with the stars to figure it out, what would you suggest one use to be able to actually figure out the right times and seasons? And you understand what I'm getting at?
So while star apps might be man-made, yes, we can determine what Marissa found by looking in the sky as we see it as well. So it's the only source of information we have to track these things. We are also tracking them visibly as they come along. So we don't push don't trust star apps whatsoever. Yes, they do make mistakes here and there. They might not be as accurate in a consistent manner, but we can visibly see what Marissa had seen as well. And it's mostly a lot of others who try to discredit the star app and say, oh, well, this, that, and another thing, you can't track it unless it's convenient for them. Kind of like Gina and Robert. They say, oh, you can't use star apps and things like that, but they can do it to calculate theirs. So we're not trying to be like that. We do say, like timeanddate.com, they do have errors. And actually, if you go to the naval tracking site, it's not NASA, it's actually, the U.S. Navy tracking site, their data is a lot more accurate, and it has to be more accurate because, ships would get lost at sea if their data was inconsistent, basically.
Well, I'm not saying at all that you're that. How do I put this? I'm not saying that your findings and your connecting the dots that they're wrong. I'm saying that you're very well on track of your findings and understanding, and it brings a lot to light. I'm just asking for, say, the best way for me to do it as well. So, if that makes sense. So you say use the the Navy website would be the best one, or what would be the best app to put on your phone to do it? I apologize. I'm a little new. This is
no worries.
I'm sorry.
No worries. No need to apologize. So Marissa would probably be the best person to talk to about all that. She has the STAR app, the naval tracking data. It's like you can just Google or whatever search engine and just put in a naval tracking app, and it'll show it up in there. And it's like USNO or something like that. I can go find it after this, and I'll share it again in the chat here.
And which one is Marissa in the chat, or if she could just put my name in the chat, 1, 2. I know my name in this right here don't actually line up with me in the chat. I am Audra. So if I heard is saying something, say, hey, this is me, Marissa, maybe I can connect with her that way too. That might help.
Well, she doesn't seem to be in the chat at the moment, but she's in the chat quite a lot when you see her, or you can scroll up till you see her name. It's Marissa Spencer. I'm sure once she hears this, she'll be willing to talk to you. But really, she knows the Star app name. I don't recall it at the moment. Unless Katrina, do you remember the name of that Star app? Or if anybody else would like to help out.
Is it Stellarium?
Yeah, I think it's Stellarium.
No, she uses a different one. It's not Stellarium.
It's it was not Stellarium. I forget which one she uses. Hold on, let me see if I can get her.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. It's like Star Chart or something like that.
Charter?
I think it's Star Chart or something. Marissa would know for sure. Definitely.
We are definitely onto something, and definitely intriguing and eye-opening. So I do appreciate this right here, and I do. I'm glad I found. What was it? Katrina's little post that she did. I'm glad I found that, and I appreciate your all's time and your presentation in itself.
Yeah, Katrina's good at posting all the information for sure. Claire, I see your question. You got something deeper.
That would be Katrina's end.
Yeah, Katrina, I think your phone's going off.
Oh, sorry.
So, Claire, yeah, I don't have page numbers on that. I think really the best thing would be just to go to my website where the article is itself. I know it's towards the end there of my article. Here, I'll share the link again. Oops, 1 second. Sumi had a question as well. Wait, did you, Sumi? Let me find it here. Wait, why is there a day zero in the Sabbath count, but not the yearly? Wouldn't there be a day zero in both? Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a 0 day in both the yearly weekly cycle and the yearly monthly cycle as well. That's kind of what we were going over there with that little chart. Hold on, let me see if I got it here and I could share it. Yeah. So here's the picture I had in my article, and then I also have one picture Marissa had there on screen. So this is one she kind of redid. So we're going to see like a 0 day, which is, marked in the red letterings. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. Oops. I don't think I have the new one of those. My apologies. That's the, where is it? Because I actually fixed that. So, hold on, let me find the correct one. I think it's actually here in my Telegram somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so that's the proper one right there. Because I'd made it at first before Marissa made or discovered what she had discovered there and the two different cycles and how they overlap. So we didn't quite get it at first, so I remade the whole chart showing the two different 0 days there. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't look like Sumi's still in here.
I just realized that I could have gone back in and chat and while you were doing your presentation at the same time to see what people had to say while you were doing this. I'm sorry for interrupting your presentation.
No, it's all good. No worries. Yeah, I was just practicing for my presentation with Jackson Snyder. So let me see how long that was. It was 2 hours and 9 minutes. Yeah, a bit longer than I expected, but it's okay. I had to add a lot more in there. Basically to cover, the stuff about Saturday being day one of an 8-day week that they had, things like that. But yeah, we also have our other group. I'm not sure. I think you're in it. Yeah, you're in it. We have our other group. That's where we put all of our recordings that we've done. There's going to be ones in there that, got removed from YouTube because, they don't like the information shared. But we still have them here. And we also have a lot of PDFs. We have 3 different versions of the Dead Sea Scrolls, or translations, I should say. All kinds of PDFs, links, videos, just a whole bunch of resources, really, is what we have. I made that second group so we can keep them, separated, because this is our like main chat. So at first I kept putting stuff in here and it would just get lost in the discussion. So I made another group so we can just keep it all like easily findable.
I can understand that. You wouldn't want a lot of things getting overlaid and jumbled up. I understand completely. And I appreciate y'all having me in here and allowing me to sit and try to digest and absorb what you're teaching and what you're finding. I really do appreciate y'all for allowing me to join.
Yeah, thank you for being here. All praise to the Most High.
Mama Lotus, have you read the Book of Enoch?
I like the Book of Enoch. It's very intriguing. And there's a lot of information on that one. I do like the Book of Enoch. And I like Jubilees and Jasher. I've dug into Maccabees once. I got a little off, and I have to go back into that one again.
I started with getting my head around what was in Enoch and how to count the days and the months from there, and then pretty soon everything starts to fall into place. It's understanding Enoch that's the real key to all this, I think.
Yeah, being that him himself was up above with Yahuah and himself looking down, I do agree from Yahuah's perspective. Then I don't want to say hate. If I think about how the throne is supposed to be set for say, and they say let there be light before there was the moon and the stars, my first thought was the actual North Star for his throne would be the first thing in the very, it would be like his eyes looking down upon us. That was just a little revelation I had to myself. I may be wrong, I may not, but that was just my intake on that one.
Oh, for sure. There's something about that North Star that stays still. I'm quite sure that he sits above it on the seventh dome above that, and everything's revolving around him, and he's able to look down for sure. But there's section in Enoch that actually break down how the months and how the sun and how everything is moving around together. If you read it, it's quite nice. It took me about, I don't know, a good 7-10 times to read. I think it's chapters 70 to, I can't remember, 74, 75 to really get it cemented in my mind, and then everything starts to fall in place.
I definitely have to reread it and restate it a whole lot more. I think I've read through it a couple of times, but not enough to actually grasp the full message.
What translation of Enoch do you have?
As of this time, the only one I have is through the Hallelujah Scriptures. And wait, I think there's one in the Cipher. Yes, there's one in the Cipher.
So the Sefer version, just be careful. There's a lot of mistranslation in there and confusing because it talks about following the sun and the moon too. So that version of Enoch will get very confusing. I haven't read the Hallelujah Scriptures, so I don't know how good they are, but I know that the purest translation of Enoch is the one that's been translated through R.H. Charles.
Yeah. Hallelujah Scriptures is R.H. Charles. Dr. P. Sefer is, I don't know. Yeah, I'd be careful with it. Just like Miranda was saying. We've uncovered some things about Dr. P, but yeah, just be very careful.
Okay, so R.H. Charles's Book of Enoch. Would you find that on a website or Amazon or something like that?
Yeah, I know it's online. I think it's sacredtext.com. you can get an online version. I'm not sure whether you can download it, but it's certainly good enough to read through. I bought a physical R.H. Charles. It wasn't very much. Something like, I don't know. Maybe in your money, $10, $9, something like that.
Yeah, you can also get it on Amazon too.
I appreciate y'all's input. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a God culture version as well. Yeah. There's several versions. I know I even have a link in there. It'll show the R.H. Charles. It shows R.H. Charles, the Greek, and Lawrence version, and the Gies version, actually. So it's 4 different translations of it. Of course, where it's in the Greek, kind of fragmented out. The only one it doesn't have is the Hebrew version found in Dead Sea Scrolls. But yeah, Marissa, did you want to add anything that you found or any discoveries that you've made or?
Nope, not right now. I haven't really found anything new in the last week or so that I'd like to share.
Oh, I found something that someone might like to listen to.
Yeah,
Go for it.
Well, I've lost my Book of Jubilees, and I've been hunting around for it, and I couldn't find it. So I picked up, which I haven't read for a long time, the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. And in there, if you read the Natali, the Testament of Natali, there's a really, really interesting reference in there that I think would lead. Well, if I read it, I think you'll understand what I'm trying to get at.
Please do.
So, as you know, these are all patriarchs on their deathbed. I don't know whether they're dying that day or whether they're preparing themselves for death. But basically, they're looking back on their lives and they're sort of telling their woes of what they did wrong and what not to do and giving advice to their children, really. So here, Naphtali is talking. He's saying, talking about his life and about the things that he'd done wrong. And he's saying, and be therefore not eager to corrupt your doings through covetousness or through vain words to beguile your souls, because if you keep silence in purity of heart, you shall understand how to hold fast the will of God, and cast away the will of the devil or Beliar. Sun and moon and stars change not their order, so do ye also change not the law of God in the disorderness of your doings. So there he's talking about, well, if you keep faithful to the sun and the stars and what's happening above, and keep the word of righteousness, then you're not going to change your way. Then later on he goes into a dream, and in the dream, if I read the dream, it says, for in the 40th year of my life I saw a vision on the Mount of Olives on the east of Jerusalem, that the sun and the moon were standing still. So this is a dream, you know, this isn't for real. The sun and the moon were standing still, and behold, Isaac, the father of my father, said to us, run and lay hold of them each according to his strength, and to him that seizeth them will the sun and moon belong. Interesting. And this is, I suppose, everyone, all the children, we all ran, all of us together, and Levi, priestly, Levi, laid hold of the sun. And Judah outstripped the others and seized the moon. So we've got lay hold, and we've got a seizing of the moon. And they were both of them lifted up with them, And when Levi became as a son, lo, a young man gave him 12 branches of palm. Interesting. And Judah was as bright as the moon, and under their feet were 12 rays. And a bull upon the earth with 2 great horns and an eagle's wings upon his back. And we wished to seize him, but could not. But Joseph came and seized him, and ascended up with him on high. And I saw, for I was there, and behold, holy writings appeared to us, saying that the Assyrians, Medes, Persians, Syrians shall possess in captivity the 12 tribes of Israel. So there's me looking at that, thinking, well, Judah and everyone else grabbed the moon, and they started to worship the moon. And shortly after that, the Syrians possessed them, and they went into captivity. So he doesn't tell anyone this dream. And he goes on in the book, and he sat down with his father and he's chatting, and he tells his father the dreams that he's had. And his father replied, and lo, my children, I have shown to you the last times how everything shall come to pass in Israel. Do also ye charge your children that they unite Levi and to Judah, for through them shall salvation arise unto Israel. And in them shall Jacob be blessed, for through the tribes of God appear on earth, to save the race of Israel, to gather together the righteousness from amongst the Gentiles. So I was pretty sort of amazed by that. It seems that, it is a picture of the tribe certainly following the moon and falling away from the sun, and then going into captivity. And it's this renewing of this calendar of us following the sun and the righteous ways that is going to pull many others away from the wrong calendars and into doing the right things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're seeing, because when we show that evidence and just can walk it through scriptures, people can see it easily. Now, of course, there's people who are going to, naysay and hate, but that's what happens. I mean, we can walk this through the scriptures. Marissa found the star signs that back it up. We just find more and more confirmation throughout scriptures constantly. And, all praise to the Most High. And honestly, it's just a perfect example of why we all need each other, like 100%. Like, it's a group effort, for real.
It's really neat how the Father had you not see Jubilees for a little bit so we could hear that.
Yeah. You were breaking up there a little bit, though, sister.
We have a little bit of a storm going on here. I think it's really neat the way that the Father allowed Ken to overlook his Jubilees book he was reading for a little bit, so that we could hear what he had to share in that passage that he just read.
Yeah, it shows to me that the righteous, the priestly people do cling on to the sun, and the rest of the tribes of Israel clearly went for the moon, and they still are going for the moon. I mean, the Jewish people are all full on for the moon, and it's just amazing how prophecy is still alive today for us to witness, if you know what I mean. And through the Gentiles, Israel will be saved. I mean, we are the Gentile nations, aren't we? We are the we're grafted into the branches. If Levi grabbed the son and he was given 12 branches, I think those 12 branches are branches from the Gentiles and not necessarily the branches from the tribes of Israel.
Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes, and I wonder if it's how much it has to do with the lost 10 tribes that that went into captivity because of their disobedience, that never went back with Judah and Levi and Benjamin back to the land.
Gentiles is actually not the right term. The lost 10 tribes were the nations that Paul went to preach, and also the nations that Yahushua said that he came to redeem. So, just understand, Ken, that much of the Gentile nations are actually the lost tribes. They became lost to their identity.
I'll take that on board, Sarah. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So this morning.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'll wait. You go ahead, sweetie. I apologize. I just had a thought. ADHD kicked in. I apologize.
No need to apologize. Just real quick, my mom and I this morning were going through one of our Dead Sea Scroll books, and it was kind of just highlighting some more stuff in the table of contents, and I came across an interesting title for one of them called The Charter for Israel in the Last Days. And in column 1, it says, "This is the rule for all the congregation of Israel in the last days. When they are mobilized to join the Yahad, they must live by the law of the sons of Zadok, the priests, and the men of their covenant, who they ceased to walk in the ways of the people. These are the same men of his party who kept his covenant during evil times, and so atoned for the land. And as they arrived, all the newcomers shall be assembled, women and children included, and read all the statutes of the covenant. They shall be indoctrinated in all of their laws, for fear that otherwise they may sin accidentally."
Where is
Wow.
that?
So this is in 1QSA, 1Q2 28A, and it was in column 1, and it's general instructions for the final incorporation of all Israel into the Yahad. So this is like last days, instructions for following the true way. And it says they must live by the law of the sons of Zadok, the priests, the men of their covenant.
Wow. I don't think I know any communities that are actually living according to that. I've heard of a couple that are using the community rule, but I'm not familiar with anybody who's actually doing that and using the Zadok calendar. I know of a group that's using the Enoch calendar and doing that.
Maybe we should start one, huh?
I mean, if you think about it, essentially the Enoch calendar is the Zadok calendar. Everything that Enoch wrote down is everything that the Zadoks followed.
Yeah.
It's one and the
But then,
same.
exactly.
The book of Enoch is referenced a few times in the book of the 12 patriarchs as well. I mean, it's all interlinked there, isn't it? It's like a lovely patchwork quilt that we're sewing together here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see it mentioned right there in Jubilees too, talking about how he's writing down the months of the years. Really amazing. And,
Well, somebody called me that was part of that group just day before yesterday, and we were on the same Sabbaths. Whether everything else is the same or not, we're on the same Sabbaths. And he was so happy to hear that I was on the same Sabbaths. Oh, sister. It was so funny. Anyway, but they don't we've got like the wheel within the wheel, and then with what Marissa and Sean are working out. That, you know, that's the third wheel that I didn't understand a few weeks ago, but I'm getting better now. And you know, some of these things, I think that that's the basic, though, understanding that fourth day begins, and some of the details might not coincide, but even if the details don't coincide, we're all in the same Sabbath if we're doing it the way that the way that starts with the fourth day of the week on the equinox.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion's going to come in, is because, you know, even understanding the two cycles is kind of difficult to understand because we're still, you know, hashing it all out. But, you know, from the beginning, it's kind of what I saw, and it was hard for me to explain, which is why I kept talking about the two counts, and everyone was like, huh? But Marissa, you know, with what she found, and Sean, and them coming together and working things out, you know, it's coming more and more to light, like Yahuwah is showing us these things. It's because we're gathering together and we're searching for his truth. And that's what it's all about, really. And that reminds me, we need to continue our reading in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. Oh, there it is.
Was that what Ken read also out of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
So I was reading that because of the 12 patriarchs. That was the Testament of Natali. However,
I'm wondering if that's also found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
It'd be really interesting, because can you remember in the community rule that we read in the first week? It said that we had, and because of Adam's fall, we were given two spirits within us. Basically, a spirit of good or a spirit of bad. That was it in paraphrase. But I also found the same sort of wordage in the testament, or I can't remember which testament it was. It was one of the sons of Jacob, and it said that our heart laid in between these two spirits, and it's our heart that gets judged when God looks at us. He's going to look at our heart on which side or which decisions we made when both these spirits were talking to us, if you know what I mean. I just found that it really tied in quite nicely with what we were reading in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, and they actually were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I was going to say, I thought the Testament of Levi was definitely found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
Yeah,
I didn't.
And parts of others.
Okay.
And they found extra, like, testaments, like the patriarchs' testimonies. It was, I forget who else was in there, but yeah, that's why I wanted to continue our reading as well, because we're going to get to those. But yeah, they found fragments of the Testament of the 12. They didn't find all 12, but they found mostly Levi and fragments of Judah. I think they found like 3 or 4 of them in there, plus like 3 or 4 other ones that we don't have, which is really fascinating.
I find these other books that we're now reading that are not in the Bible to be a complete eye-opener all the time.
Yeah, that's why they remove them. They just want people to follow, you know, churchianity.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Mama Lotus?
I had a question. I know y'all have your own little personal Facebook pages, but do y'all have like a Facebook page community that y'all all come to and you understand what I'm saying? Do y'all have your own, like, a group page on Facebook?
Katrina are you listening? She would know. There was kind of a page made, but we don't really know what's going on with that because someone who was in our group who had left had made that page. So we'll have to find out what's going on with it or make another one. But right now we kind of do, but we kind of don't.
Harry, sorry, somebody actually came over to take some of my comfrey leaves, and she was interested about the faith, so sorry.
No, worries.
Yeah, she's like, what is it that you follow? I was like, well, you got an hour? But, I'm sorry. So we do have a group. Adrian is the one that created it. However, she left the group, so I don't know how long it's going to be up. She might one day take it down. But it's up there. It's just used for like files right now. Not really gathering, just I'll share the stuff that I feel is important. I should do that more often. Share my posts. It's just kind of like a file group to go through like all the information that we found, kind of thing.
Yeah, like basically.
Katrina, you are on my friends list. This is Audra. So,
Audra. Yeah.
So whenever y'all do make another one, would you mind sending me an invite when you make?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I think I did. I think I added you today. It's called Keepers. I think I did add you. Let's see. Pretty positive.
There's the messenger one too. The messenger discussion on Facebook.
Yeah, did I add you to that one too? I think I did. Let's see.
I'll have to look because I haven't got any notifications yet on that.
Let's see. Audra Newsom?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, it just came up first. Let's see. Audra. No, I think I added you. Oh, wait, here it is. Nope, I didn't. Okay. So, Audra, you are in Keepers of Yahuah's Timepiece. And you're also right now in the Zadok Calendar Revealed private message group. Let's see. Hey, okay, I think I added you to that one already. So just check your private messages. Did I add you? Yeah, check your private message and look for Zadok Calendar Revealed.
I got Zadok Calendar Revealed. I'm on that one. Yes.
Okay, great. Yep. That one, we just kind of discuss. And then the Keepers of Yah's Timepiece will be for files. And then the Telegram group for files and whatnot. Yeah. Go through. And please, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask questions. I'm always available for that. Always.
If I get mixed up, I will. Most definitely.
Oh my goodness. Yes, please. I love it. It is my honor and privilege. I need a pen. Good night.
We're going to call the party off.
Well, praise Yah. We are glad you're here. And welcome, sister.
Does anyone...
Oh, go ahead.
Say, may Yahuah keep working through you and guiding you in the right direction. I appreciate everything that He has shown you and that you are showing everybody else to bring people to light.
Thank you. All praise to the Most High. Were you going to say something, Ken?
I've always got something to say, you know me. I was reading the Book of Nazarene, or the Gospel of the Kaleidi, or the Wise Stranger, and what Claire was talking about with deliverance and everything. A lot of it was in there actually, but there was a little section there that suggested that Yahushua was Yeshua before he was baptized, which I thought was quite fascinating, that they actually noted the change in his name.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Break that down for me for a minute.
Yeah.
Jesus is referenced as Yahusha in the Book of Nazarene. But in the first chapter of the book, it's about John's life. And when Yahushua was baptized, John was calling him Yahushua all the time. But he put in a reference that he was known before as Yeshua.
That's interesting. That would kind of coincide with the Constantine Creed and with his name written out as it was in the Constantine Creed.
That is really interesting. Yeah, the Book of Kaleidi, or the Book of Nazarene.
That's the.
I actually have a. Oh, go ahead, brother.
No, all I was saying was that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that I was referring to.
Yeah. It's in Yah's scriptures as well, which actually here I can share a link for everybody. But it's free online. They have a hard copy as well. I know there's a limited amount of those, but here I'll share the link with you.
They have an app for Samsung as well. If you go to the App Store, you can find the app for it.
Yeah, that's right. They do have it on the App Store as well.
I do have a question. Has any of y'all listened to Christopher Glenn's removed book of Melchizedek?
What book was it again?
Melchizedek.
Yeah. No, who authored it though? Well,
I don't know what he reads it out of, but on YouTube he has it's Christopher Glenn book, the removed book of Melchizedek. It kind of it breaks down why Yahuah himself
it's
it breaks
it's
down
the
of
same
why
one.
he did what he did without all generations from Adam to Eve. And in the storyline, it actually brought me to tears to see how much love he had for them, that he protected them when they were going through their own trials and tribulations and darkness and things coming out of him. He wouldn't let nothing touch them. It's very good to listen to. It'll show you so much love that he has. I highly recommend that one for Fruit of the Spirit, for say.
Can you write that in the chat for me, please, and I'll follow up from there, please.
I'd have to. Can I share a YouTube video in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me go find a link and I'll share that one. Let me just put Ken beside it.
Thank you very much, sister.
No problem.
Yeah, and I think I think I've seen that one, and I think it has to do with the Melchizedek scroll and the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. There's a lot of fascinating books in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So this is just the beginning of them, like the community rule, Damascus document. It's basically just going over what they believed in and their rules. Then after these, it starts getting into the scriptures that they had as canon. And, Enoch, Jubilees, the Book of Melchizedek. So many extra books in there. There's a psalm for each day of the year. There's a psalm for every Sabbath. There's a psalm for every festival. But yeah, we're going to see that, though, here. And speaking of, here, we'll continue our reading here a little bit in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well. And let me get a link. So I'll put it here in chat.
It may take me a minute. Let me see if I can find it for you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, while you look for it, we'll continue our reading here in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But I have the link there in chat, and for those later who will be watching on YouTube, the link will also be in the description. It's Florentino Garcia Martinez edition, the Dead Sea Scrolls translated, the Qumran text in English. And again, Florentino Garcia Martinez edition, I like it because as we've seen, he's put clear brackets and distinctions where insertions and such have been made. So it's real easy to get down to like the original text and what it says. So hold on. Oops, no, that's not what I meant. Oh boy. Sorry guys, lost the page. I hit the wrong bar there. Hold on one second. Let me fix this. Let's see. Get past the introduction, get past the foreword. I know what page it was, like in the book itself, because that's what I was looking at. I don't know, because the website numbers the page, like the entirety of the book, like every single page in the book. So it has two different page numbers, and I didn't pay attention to the second one. My apologies. Here we go. Here we go. So it's page 80. I was looking at page 10 because that's what page it is in the book. It was actually page 80. Okay, so my apologies.
Can I send it to the where it says videos section, and I just put Ken under in my the note when I sent it through Telegram for you.
Well, actually put it in the links one, because the videos, I try to say for mostly these recordings here. So if you put it in the link section, it'll link it to that video. But it's okay. No worries.
Next time I'll put it in links. I apologize.
No worries. It's all good.
Much. Thank you very much. Very sweet of you, sister.
Okay, so I'll zoom in a bit more here. Make sure I don't click the wrong one. Actually, we were over here on this side. So we were starting here at column 6. Because we ended column 7. We ended column 6. So now we're on to column 7. So let me get this there. All right, so column 7, continuing in the community rule. So just a quick overview, they were talking about, the rules and the punishments. Basically, if you disobey the rules were founded on, what Torah says. And they're rules for being a part of the community. So if you weren't a part of the community, they did not enforce these rules on you like Pharisees and Sadducees did, for example. They forced their rules on everybody. All right, so continuing, whether blaspheming or overwhelmed by misfortune or for any other reason, and then it's blank, it's a missing text, or reading a book or blessing will be excluded and shall not go back to the community council. And if he has spoken angrily against one of the priests enrolled in the book, he will be punished for a year and shall be excluded under the sentence of death from pure food of the many. However, if he had spoken unintentionally, he will be punished for 6 months. And whoever lies knowingly shall be punished for 6 months. Whoever knowingly and for no reason insults his fellow will be punished for a year and will be excluded. And whoever speaks to his fellow with deception or knowingly deceives him will be punished for 6 months. And if blank or vacate, he is negligent to his fellow, he will be punished for 3 months. However, if he is negligent with the possessions of the community, achieving a loss, he shall replace them. And then a word or two is missing here. In full. And then blank, 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 or vacate, vacate, vacate. And if he does not manage to replace them, he will be punished for 60 days. And whoever feels animosity towards his fellow for no cause will be punished for 6 months, a year. Well, we see this 6 months was kind of inserted in there, but it says a year. So, don't know why they inserted the 6 months here. Kind of interesting. But then it says a year right here. So, interesting. Anyways, continuing. So, and likewise, for anyone retaliating for any reason, whoever utters with his mouth futile words, 3 months. And for talking in the middle of the words of his fellow, 10 days. Now, these are pretty interesting rules, but I see exactly why they have them. With our conversations with so many people, this is exactly what we see. People interrupting, people, name calling and bashing, things like that. So I can see why they have these rules. So whoever lies down and goes to sleep in the session of many, 30 days. So no sleeping. Excuse me. So, and the same applies to whoever leaves the session of the many without cause or falls asleep up to 3 times during a session shall be punished 10 days. However, if then a word's missing, then a whole lot is missing. And when he withdraws, he shall be punished for 30 days. And whoever walks about naked in front of his fellow without needing to shall be punished for 3 months. And the person who spits in the course of a meeting of the many shall be punished 30 days. And whoever takes out his hand from under his clothes, or if these are rags which allow his nakedness to be seen, he will be punished 30 days. Interesting. I wonder what they're talking about here. His hand from under his clothes. So they're talking about showing something they shouldn't be. Interesting. So, and whoever giggles inanely, causing his voice to be heard, shall be sentenced to 30 days. And whoever takes out of his left hand to gesticulate with it shall be punished 10 days. Interesting.
You know, these things, they must be addressing things that have happened before. Like somebody's in rags and they take their hand out and they're not covered in their private area anymore. Or someone, you know, or like, man, I would have a hard time with the interrupting. I mean, I like to attribute it to the 3 second delay, you know, or something, but still.
No worries.
Robert's Rule of Order, I think that they started there. And sometimes, you know, something will hit your funny bone and you just laugh. And you get everybody all distracted. And these are all things that they're trying to help people recognize the gravity of the gathering and where our focus is to be, and it's not on ourselves. Those are thoughts that are coming to my mind.
No, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's true. Because, you know, like, oh, go ahead, brother. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's Claire. I was going to say that when we went to Libby's caravan place at Sakot last year, that was the first time we've met Libby. And there was another couple that went there from London. They're not on this group. They do Zadok, but they do the one day before. You know, they're still on the Saturday Zadok. He was very strong about community rule, and he was trying to impress on everyone the sternness of everything, and that we shouldn't, like it's mentioning in these things we're reading now. That we shouldn't be taking light of people's conversation, like that people are putting their whole ruach into everything they're saying, and they're really, there was joy, but at the same time there's seriousness, and in fact he was very serious actually, this guy, and we've been on his personal, he has his own group. I won't mention his name because he's not here or anything, but basically he's very kind of rigid and stern, and I'm wondering if that's why, because reading these, and it says you're not allowed to sort of laugh or anything, you're not allowed to gesticulate with your hands and make noises or anything. It does sound quite strict, doesn't it? But that's what he was trying to put across during Sakot, and everybody seemed to sort of look at each other as if to say, who is this guy? Because it was the first time he'd come, and they invited him to speak, I think simply because he had his own ministry. I think he's one of the main leaders or teachers of this ministry. So yeah, it's interesting to hear it now, because he was saying about it. Makes you have to remove all joy, though, don't you think?
Well,
From my understanding, I thought you were supposed to count everything joy. The ups, the downs, the tribulations, the things that you see that you don't even agree with, but you just be quiet and just try to guide another one to do right. And if they come to you for guidance, not just correct them when wrong. From my understanding, but you're supposed to count anything that you experience in life, whether it be something terrible or something awesome, all joy. That's just my
yeah,
understanding.
Yeah, it's true.
I would agree with
Isn't it?
that. And, oh, go ahead, brother. Go
Isn't
ahead.
it? Isn't it more about self-discipline? If we are to discipline and discern the spirits that are either side of our heart, aren't we also disciplining ourselves in order that we're able to also discipline that inner? I mean, basically, the reason why people do these things is because they're listening to the wrong side of their heart. And the spirit that's trying to encourage them to do something that they shouldn't. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand exactly what you mean on that one. Yes. I know that I have fallen short many times and I gave myself my own lashings. just my thoughts and replaying everything that led up to that moment and what I did. I'm like, man, I fell in a ditch big time. That was my fault. I should have done that. And I'd have to come correct
Isn't
the
this
person
just
I
for
done
like the
wrong.
biggest? Isn't this for the big assembly where everybody's meeting and no
yeah.
distractions? Just to
That,
be
that,
respectful of who's teaching and don't distract?
yeah. Actually, I was just about to say that, sister. Exactly. So, yes, these rules are talking about when they're coming together for, when they're doing the high Sabbaths and the Sabbath days. This is what these rules are for. So, if you're interrupting, the Sabbath fellowship, things like that. This isn't like a just general rule all the time. It's just for, as we see, the assembly of the many. It means when they're coming together and they're gathering for like a Sabbath day, like to read from Moses, things like that. So that's what these rules are mainly speaking about right here.
Oh, not like everybody's on a phone call and nobody sees somebody else has their hand up or something.
Yeah. yeah. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying as well, Ellie, because, this is just, we can see that these things have happened, so they had to make a rule about it, basically, is what they're saying. So, like, giggling and laughing maybe at a scripture that was read, or, interrupting the person speaking when it's supposed to be like say someone's giving a presentation, reading from Moses, and then, he's just constantly being interrupted. Kind of like what we saw happen to Dustin on Jackson Snyder, but yeah, we can see it's just for these, big gatherings or fellowships that they have. It's not just like a permanent rule the whole time for the entire community. So there's just a distinction.
But it probably wouldn't hurt those of us who think quickly and speak quickly to be able to calm down a little bit and let our brethren gather their thoughts and not jump in whenever they're done taking a breath, because they might have more to say on the issue if we don't interrupt them.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree. And, we spoke on the phone with somebody like last week, I think, and yeah, he was just constantly interrupting, things like that. But actually, quite a few people do that. When we speak to them on the phone, they'll interrupt and want to push their view, and it's like, well, hold on, I wasn't finished, explaining everything. But yeah, no, I agree.
Hey, I've been guilty of that. I've been overzealous and not listening very well because I already knew their argument and I already knew why I didn't see it that way. I was quite young
Yeah,
and zealous at the time, though.
No, I know exactly how you feel, because a lot of times, we already know their side, so that they explain their side, and it's like, yes, we understand this, but yeah, no, I get it.
Jeremy, can
So
we
I don't
remind?
want to excuse myself, but I have been guilty of that, and I've asked the Father to help me, and I've even muted my phone when I'm talking to someone so that if I say something, it won't distract them. And I was talking with a sister the other day about how they express women connect things up differently than men. And this is going to sound odd perhaps, but like women's brains are like spaghetti and go all over the place, and they can have a slight connection to something, and men have like waffle brains and they want everything, this discussion to be everything that's clearly related to something, and so listening a man out and not interrupting him is real important so that he can keep his focus, and then maybe we can share. And that's been something I've been a little slow to learn, because in my family we didn't do that. In my family, everybody's talking over, under, and around each other. Anyway.
It reminds me of this little seminar. Now, he's a Christian, but he shared some interesting aspects on the difference between a male's brain and a female's brain, and it's called The Tale of Two Brains. Have you heard of it?
I have, and it's very, very good and funny at the same time.
Yes, he nails it on the head. I mean, I'll look for him and I'll share it in the chat. It's really good.
Thank
you.
Jeremy,
Awesome. Go ahead, brother.
Can you remind me what the punishment was?
For which one?
Well, we've got days and months and a time period for a punishment. Is the punishment being excommunicated from the group, or what? I can't remember what the punishment was.
It seemed as though that it was just excommunicated for like 6 months to a year. But isn't there a severe one, which was death? Was there death in there? I don't think so.
No, it said because of the law of death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and it goes over, the severity of the punishment, and really it would vary depending on like all these different circumstances here. So,
what was the punishment? Was the punishment to be excommunicated or not to take part in the group sessions, as it were?
I think it was the second. I don't think they were excommunicated for small infractions, but after they did, if there's some problem that continues, then they might be. I think you read somewhere, or I read somewhere, where if somebody was put out, when they wouldn't take him back, but the Messiah could judge him and bring him back in when he came, something like that. Anybody else remember that?
I didn't read that. I'm sorry, but I'm going to apologize for interrupting y'all, period, because now I feel like I've done something wrong.
No, interrupting means talking over somebody, like intentionally putting your voice in there to distract everybody from what they're saying. That's interrupting, not this 3-second delay and we don't know that somebody's
Yeah, exactly. So what we're going to see basically is the punishment. It was about to get into it, but it's where is it? It's talking about, the community meal, like the big meal that they have. Like you can't be a part of that. Oh yeah, right here. Shall be excluded for 1 year from the pure food of the many, and shall be punished. And then I think it's going to get in. Oh, go ahead.
Are we saying that the pure food is on a Sabbath day?
I think so. Or it's a community meal that they had every day, I believe. I think it just goes more into that in the Damascus document.
Wasn't it like somebody could be a novice for a year, and they basically, they didn't put their money into the community yet. The community might hold it. There's the community meal had to do with being part of the community, not just a novice where you come in and out, that sort of thing. And so the pure food had to do with where they were and how far self-disciplined they'd become, and how were they willing to continue and to, like our Savior said to the rich young ruler, sell all you have and give to the poor. Well, those poor were the Ebionites. The Ebionites were those that had a community like that with only one person or a couple of people were dealing with unrighteous mammon to take care of the needs of the whole community. And it's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was it. Thanks for that explanation. That's it right there. Because we see, newcomers coming into it couldn't partake of this food either. And it's because it was the set apart gathering meal that they had. Not to say that you can't eat or have food, but you can't take part in that, special meal that they would have together.
It makes you really think that our Savior did have a closed communion.
Oh yeah. That's only the 12 apostles were there, and actually Judas got kicked out before they started it. So it was only the 11, technically. So yeah, we see it's a very close community. They didn't want any, temptation or anything coming in there. Like some newcomer coming in and, whatever, what have you. Infiltrators, basically. They wanted to, vet everybody and make sure they were truly wanting to follow the way. They wanted to make sure you wanted to follow Yahuah before becoming part of this community. And it's because they didn't want anything to do with, Satan infiltrating it.
They didn't want people to find themselves stuck there and unable to go back and live the way that they did before. That's why they had like a 3-year probationary time.
Yeah, exactly. And we see that in Paul as well, because Paul became a member of this community. And there's a lot of people that don't understand Paul's connection to the Dead Sea Scroll community and how he became a member of it. And his letters have a lot of the same, writing, like the etymology, basically. It's like Paul calls Satan Belial. That's what they call him in here. These guys say we follow the way. That's what Paul said he follows. Like, there's so many connections, but yeah, the deeper you go, the more you see, really.
So, to summarize, there's a year where they're living around these people, and then they start having the meal. or the meetings, and if they start behaving incorrectly, can we then assume that Satan or the spirit within is disturbing the meeting, so then they have to go back and get rid and reconsider?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We even see that too. Even people who made mistakes, yeah, they still get the punishment, but if they show to be repentant, they can, earn their place back, basically. So now we're also going to read, it's in the Damascus document, but, they speak about how all these rules will stand until the Messiah comes and corrects us. So we also have to remember these were written just before the Messiah came by the sons of Zadok. So,
And
I'll go ahead.
And he did. He corrected them on taking his sheep out of a ditch and different things, or a cow or whatever. And it was thought that perhaps by that time they'd loosened up on that rule, because he was actually saying, well, you've done this. But that might have been dealing with the synagogues of the Pharisees whenever he was rebuking that. These are like really interesting connections as time goes on and we ponder and read and pray and ask the Father to guide us in understanding what he was doing there and what he's doing with us in our hearts,
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly fascinating and amazing. And let me finish up this section here, and then see how much do we got left. Oh, that's about. We're almost done right here.
Right, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no worries.
6 months.
6 months, you said? That's where we're at?
I think she means that I'm not supposed to speak for 6 months on the call. No, I'm
Oh,
teasing.
yeah. Yeah, that's right, huh? Let's see. We'll start. So, defaming his fellow. We talked about that. Whoever goes around defaming the many shall be expelled from their midst and will never return. And whoever complains against the foundation of the community, they shall expel, and he will never return. So, going around defaming, like the whole community, or complaining against the foundation of the community is grounds for, permanent expulsion, apparently. Like, don't come back. So, but it says, however, if he complains against his fellow without a cause, he will be punished 6 months. The person whose spirit turns aside from the foundation of the community to betray the truth and walk in the stubbornness of his heart, if he comes back, shall be punished for 2 years. During the first year, he shall not approach the pure food of the many. So see, they were told they were expelled, but then they do have a chance at repentance and coming back. And if they do, they're going to be punished, like it says, 2 years. So during the first year, he shall not approach the pure food of the many. And then blank, blank, or vacate, vacate, and then a couple missing words here. And during the second, he shall not. 1 second. Approach the drink of the many, and shall sit at the back of all the men of the community. When the days of the 2 years are complete, the many shall be questioned, and then blank, vacate, concerning his matter. If they admit him, he shall be enrolled according to his rank. And later he will be questioned in connection with judgment. Blank. However, anyone who has been in the community council blank for 10 full years, and then vacate, blank, vacate. There's a whole lot missing there. And whose spirits revert to betray the community and go away from the presence, and then blank, vacate, of the many in order to walk in the stubbornness of his heart, can never return to the community council. And the person among the men of the community who fraternize with him in concerns of purity or goods, who blank, the many, and his sentence will be like his, he shall be expelled. So there must be something pretty serious mentioned here to be expelled. You know, like this, saying can never return. We can't see what it was because a whole lot is missing there.
I would think it would be something like Korah, Dathan, and Abiram.
Yeah. It would probably have to be, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, like the who made you priest thing.
Right.
Interesting.
And another aspect is there's a difference between complaining about the core of the community or complaining about your brother. And I remember reading and getting the picture that our Savior said, you know, if you got a problem with your brother, go talk to him alone first. In other words, don't be going and causing division by talking to other people. Initiate the healing with them first. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, truly.
Very much agreed. Very much agreed. You should not sow discord among your brethren whatsoever. If you have a problem, you take it to them first and settle it. And humble yourself if you're wrong, and then taking to understand that, hey, I spoke out of line.
Yeah, precisely. And that's what we see here. And we see, you know, there's varying rules and varying degrees of punishment depending on, you know, what you had done. So I think next week we'll continue here in column 8. So, yeah. If anybody has anything, you know, that stuck out to them or anything comes to mind, you know, feel free.
I need to ask what you would prefer, Jeremy. Would you prefer to go and read through and then have us bring up what was interesting, or would you prefer us to, after a certain point, you know, if you pause to maybe bring whatever's coming to our thoughts then? Because I noticed you pause sometimes, and I didn't get in time to say something before you started reading again.
No, I don't mind, because, you know, if we're talking about something like we were, you know, it's that we're addressing that specific, you know, verse that we had just read. So, yeah, if anything sticks out to anybody, feel free to say, like, hey, you know, I got a question, or I see something here. I don't mind at all. And that's how we learn. Oh, go ahead.
And what book is this on your Dead Sea Scrolls?
I shared the link there in chat.
I'm sorry, I'll have to go back and look. I apologize again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Jeremy, could you go back to where it says about the 1 year and 2 years? It was only a few lines, well, maybe, I don't know, 16 lines back from where you just read.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Was it? Is it right here or?
I can't really see it, but it's what you said. It was about something about 1 year and 2 years, and it sounded to me like someone was going to get double, and it reminded me of the punishment that someone.
Yeah. So here it's talking about when the 2 years are complete. So let me go back to the other page because it was at the bottom there where it started. Yeah, so this is talking about someone who has been expelled, but then, they've repented and want to come back. And then he shall be punished here on the bottom here. So he will be punished for 2 years. During the first year, he shall not approach the pure food of the many. And then a lot of missing text here, a lot of missing text there. Some more missing text here. And then it continues. And during the second, so probably the second year, he shall not. Let me get back there. Oops. So he shall not approach, and then it's blank. And then the drink of the many, and shall sit in the back of all the men of the community. When the days of the 2 years are complete, the many shall be questioned, and then a lot of missing text.
Doesn't that 2 years almost sound like a double punishment, a bit like what is supposed to happen to, is it Judah in Revelation, a double punishment, another year's punishment or something?
Wow, interesting. Yeah. That could be.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it could sound like that, but I was thinking more of they have to start all over the bottom, if you want to call it the bottom. They have to show their willingness to discipline themselves for an extended period of time under the rules, because they clearly didn't respect the rules before. And I was thinking also about the this man that yells at somebody. He's anger. What's that? Outburst of wrath, right? And so he needs to get a handle on his temper, and how this anger goes into, and Paul writes about it. I think it's Paul. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, and clamor be put away from you with all malice, and be kind one to another. And that's being aware of what's going on in our spirits. And if we're not yet aware, we're just, our heart is, we want to do what's right, and we want to be part of the community, and we want to, but there's areas, there's like strongholds and areas in our way of relating to life and people that we don't have a handle on yet. It starts with 10 days. And I really appreciate that, because we're learning, and it's not one of that community I told you all about that's under the community rules in the Damascus document. This man shares about how to love reproof and repentance, and I don't remember, there's three there, and look for reproof, and appreciate it when someone reproves you, and that we have a responsibility to reprove one another, and not to like resent someone saying to you something that's talking to you about something you might be out of order in. And that's a beautiful thing. And he said And in their community, when someone's under discipline, they put their name up and they say, this many days, I do this for correction, to help me remember not to do that, you know? And some of us might need that more than others, longer than others. And just appreciating the spirit, our Abba's spirit, his Ruach, convicting us, and then us going up there and saying, listen, brethren, this is a fault. You know, where it talks about confess your faults one to another and pray for one another. So they put it up on the board. This is a fault, and this is what I'm going to do. Please pray for me while I'm doing this. Just beautiful, beautiful spirit there. And while some people look at it and think it's terrible, other people look at it and say, oh, this is an opportunity for me to heal and grow with people that love me, and they're reproving me because they care for me. It's just, the picture is beautiful. And while I looked at it many years ago as kind of, you know, critical and hard and harsh and all that, as I've grown and been walking in his spirit, you know, for a whole lot longer than I did when I first read it in the 90s. It's like, wow, how much he loves us, you know, how much he loves us, to give us those that love us enough to listen to his spirit and say something when they see that we might be going off track with the spirit of our Abba and our Savior, our Messiah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely on the same page as you, Eli. It was, I was more referring to why there's a double cup of judgment, and I think the double cup of judgment relates to this point within the Dead Sea Scrolls, that they really just didn't care. They really weren't prepared to change their ways or even move towards. It's that double punishment where they could have moved towards him, but they refused to.
Yeah, and you know what could be missing in that blank area is maybe it's someone who has come back several times, and you know they claim to repent, but then the same stuff comes back. So could be speaking of that as well. So they get that double punishment, like you were saying, like you mentioned there, Ken. And then they can't come back because, you know, they were allowed too many chances and just blew them all. Again, that's just speculation because it doesn't actually say that there, but that's my guess to what could be there. And yeah, to Ellie, you were saying there, you know, a man who has a community where they go off these rules, and you know that I was thinking about that, but there are some rules that we see that are pertaining to like the priests themselves and things like that. So it would be kind of tough to hold up these rules exact, but we can see, you know, where they do have some really good rules, like, hey, you know, if this or this happens, you know, sorry. You know, it starts out with, you know, something small like 10 days, like they did, and it works its way up to, you know, longer periods of time.
Right. And we are so, some of us anyway, depending on what our parents were like, we're so unaccustomed to discipline. And if we got discipline, some of us might not have gotten loving discipline. And if the love of the Father is governing in and having the best interest at heart for those who have developed areas in their character that aren't of him, then that's a whole lot different. You know, Paul talked about our fathers punished us for their whatever reasons they might have had. But our Father in heaven, he loves us and he disciplines us because he has a good purpose for us in the end. And he he's like pruning us, and he's helping us be aware of where our self is still governing instead of being governed by his spirit. And I think that was the heart of these people who wrote the Damascus document in the community rule.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we're even going to read later on, how they base all their rules on Torah. Like the Torah is their foundation. So they don't try to make rules that break Torah. But we are going to see those. There's like two questionable ones, but we can see those are the ones actually Messiah specifically references as well. So we see that he came back and corrected. He's like, hey, you guys are kind of wrong here. I'm sure it was in a much kinder way because they accepted correction rather than the Pharisees who got a straight up rebuke because they didn't accept correction. They were the sons of darkness, literally described in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Ellie, did you say you started reading this in the 90s?
Yeah, I think I got a copy of that, of Dead Sea Scrolls and Community Rule and all that back then. Thought it was quite interesting. They started printing those things, and I remember saving up, and I had way back then, I was raising my son by myself, and I got a what do you call it, where you get a reimbursement for you put too much in, and so they give you some back on your income tax. And so I use that to get the pseudepigrapha writings, and I really wish that I had a copy of those yet, but I don't. But I remember reading those things, and I remember the Odes of Solomon were so beautiful, and quite a few other writings. Am I mistaken? Were they not published by that time?
No, what I wanted to ask you, Ellie, was when you first read them, did you find them quite harsh and unkind?
All I knew was that it would be really hard for me to try and be in that community.
But now, yeah, and now, do you think you would like to give it a go?
If I knew the people, because some people use these kinds of things to lord it over people, and I would not be interested in a judgmental lordship kind of attitude. I know that I was quite immature back then, and I hadn't seen love as far as having to do with discipline. So I was reading it from the perspective that I came from. And yeah, I thought it would be really scary to try and be in a community like that. But now it would depend on, again, me. I've gotten old enough where I can discern spirits reasonably well. So I would not want to be in a community that was governed by somebody who didn't know how to walk in our Father's Spirit, how to acknowledge when they spoke from self instead of from Him, and justify themselves in saying and doing things that are outside of His ways.
That's fairly similar to how I felt when I first read it. I thought they, quite honestly, were, crikey, these are a strict old bunch of so-and-sos. But the more we dig into understanding, well, for me, understanding the law and his ways, I'm beginning to see that this is all about, or more about, not all about, more about our discernment and the way that we should be living our lives, choosing good from bad or right from wrong, each day and each thought.
Yep, for sure. For some of us, when we came to our Savior, we had all kinds of strongholds that the enemy lobbed out attacks on us from, and we didn't really understand what was going on. And if there's any kind of agreement with a lie in our thought processes, in our hearts, you were talking about the heart and the two sides or whatever. If there's those strongholds I love it that we can have strongholds from our Abba too, from our Messiah, the strongholds of truth that will remind us whenever the enemy from the other side, we might still have a stronghold or a lie here or there. He'll be lobbing stuff out, and then the Spirit will remind us, yeah, that's a lie. You don't want to pay attention to that. Certainly not operate in it or act from it.
So these community laws are more about the more discerning, maybe more mature person that wants to follow a faith.
Yeah, I would say so. They were the sons of Zadok. They wanted to, keep Yahuwah's laws and commands. So to be part of that community, you had to prove, you were one who was wanting to follow the way, basically. That's how I see it anyway.
And
I'm going to be very...
Go ahead, sis.
I'm going to sound very ignorant and unstudied. Who was Zadok? I've never heard that one or read. I don't think I've ever read that one. Zadok.
So Ezekiel 44.
Thank you. I'll go and look in that one. Thank you.
But they were the ones in Ezekiel 44 ordained by, actually, all throughout between Ezekiel 42 and 48. He mentions them a lot, but specifically...
Because Jeremy...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jeremy, because Zadok is just a part of the Levi priesthood, but it was Zadok's lineage of the Levitical priesthood that did not stray like the other Levitical priests did, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that's where you get like Zadok priests after that, because they were the only sect of priests through the Levitical line that did not compromise like the other ones did.
And there were some that did that were from the Zadok line too, and they are called Sadducees in the scripture. But there was the true Zadok that followed through, that wound up in a community outside of the temple, Jerusalem temple.
I thought the Sadducees were the usurpers.
That's right, from Jason, who was also of the line of Zadok.
Yeah, he was.
He was also from the line of Zadok?
Yep, he was the second son of Onias the third. And Onias the fourth was the first son. And he was the one that honored his father, and Jason was the one that followed the Seleucid lunar calendation and said, "Oh yeah, we'll do that."
Kind of like Jacob and Esau, huh? Or like, you know what I mean? Like the battle of the two boys, and Cain and Abel, like that. But yeah, Ezekiel 44. But the But the Levitical priests who are descended from Zadok, who kept my charge, my sanctuary, when the Israelites or Yasharel went astray from me, are to approach me to minister before me, and they will stand before me to offer me fat blood, declares Yahuah. They alone shall enter my sanctuary and draw near to my table to minister before me. They will keep my charge, and they are to stand as, this is Ezekiel 44:24. Wait 1 minute, Mommy's reading. And they are to stand as judges in a dispute and judge it according to my right rulings. And they are to guard my Torah, my laws, and my appointed times, and my set-apart Sabbaths. And so we see that this community was the community that were writing the Dead Sea Scrolls that were found in, what was the year?
1947. Sorry, Jeremy. Sorry,
Oh,
Jeremy.
good. So yeah, 1947. So in 1947, there was a shepherd who was doing something out in the desert and stumbled upon caves, and then those caves actually were the library of the Zadok priests. And so those Zadok priests were the ones that paved the way for our Messiah. Yochanan the Immerser. What is Yochanan? Is Yochanan Greek and Onias is Hebrew, but they're the same name?
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Onias is Greek and...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. So Yochanan was Hebrew, Onias is... So it's the same name. So when John the Baptist was named Yochanan, it was Onias. And he was bringing through the line of Zadok to Messiah. And if you go look, we have a couple videos on that where we talk about, why he was named that and what he was actually doing, because John the Baptist's parents were Zadok. Yochanan, Onias, it's all the same thing. So he's passing on that Zadok line to Messiah. It's really interesting. Jeremy, do you still have those videos saved of the lineage?
Yeah. They're in the links section, I believe.
Okay, yeah. Check into those links. And then you'll be able to like really understand who Zadok is and why their writings catapulted the truth back to us that was lost for so many years. So they're the sons of light. And the enemies they called the sons of darkness. Fitting, because, sons of darkness follow the moon. They don't... Go ahead.
Sorry. Set my charge, as you mentioned 2 times there. Set my charge is setting yourself to the calendar from the charge of the sun on the straight line.
Yeah.
Wow, where did you get that? That's beautiful.
will set my charge. They will set my charge repeated 2 times. Then further on it is they will know my Sabbaths or will keep my Sabbaths.
Yeah, and they also call like their enemies boundary shifters, which I thought was pretty crazy. Boundary shifters. Wow.
Not setting their charge.
Right, exactly. Not holding to the foundation.
I like that. Boundary shifters.
That's exactly what we see today. We see that they want to take the day, like the equinox. Some people want to call it the equinox. I know we're trying to get away from calling it the modern terms, but a lot of people know them. But for the straight line shadow, when the day that the temple would light up, they want to move that day to a Wednesday, or they want to hold that day on the 5th day of creation week because they're saying, oh, well, this was the first sunrise, so this is the first true day on the next day. And I'm like, how do you get that? Like, the 4th day is the sign.
Set my charge.
Yeah. Truly.
Yeah, and I shared a link to our discussion in chat here where we go over both those videos actually about the lineage
cool.
of Messiah, and they talk about John as well. I go over that a little bit in my write-up in the article as well about how John the Baptist, his lineage is from the true priesthood, which are sons of Zadok. Yeah, no, very good. And then also in that video I shared, I have the links to the separate videos as well that are in there. And then, so the first guy that we share, he's been caught up in some funny business. I only share his video because he has the lineage pretty spot on right there. So I've had a few people come to me about him and say, hey, do you know this guy did this, and that? I'm like, yes, I'm aware. So just to let everybody know, he was caught up in some misconduct against women. So this is why he's not been around in a long time. But that specific video, he does go over the lineage, and it's pretty good.
Well, apparently he's back. Pretty sure he's back into teaching. Yeah.
Interesting. I thought he was done. I guess not. But the second guy, the older gentleman wearing the glasses, he breaks it down really well, actually.
And all of Eddie the videos do well too. I just like the part with Yochanan. Eddie Chumney does a really good job on the history.
Yeah, Eddie Chumney does. He has some good stuff. And here, I can think. Hold on one sec. Let me get. So I have a whole playlist I put together basically here on YouTube. And I have, Eddie Chumney, Rachel Elior, both of these videos that we just spoke about.
Oh, yeah. Rachel Elior is a foundational teaching for the Dead Sea Scrolls. If you want to know, like, that was my bubble bursting moment. When I heard her, I actually had to listen to it about like 18 times, but it was so good when you finally, pray and ask the Father, hey, I need clarity on a couple things she said, and he'll show you. But yeah.
Yeah, she found out about the Dead Sea Scrolls. She studied into them. She was a Jewish historian. She found out the truth. Instead of, giving her credit and saying, oh, hey, congratulations, they booted her out because she's going against the mainstream. And they try to discredit her. So people will try to use that to try to discredit the Dead Sea Scrolls. which, we can see in all of our studies we've done here, why they try to discredit them. It's
Kind of
because
like how they try to discredit Mary Magdalene in the stories as well, and wipe her out.
yeah, exactly.
What do you mean by that?
It's all to hide the truth. I don't know much about Mary Magdalene, but I do know, what they did was to hide the fact of who's really in charge. They were in charge, and, the powers that be now usurped authority and will want to keep that authority for as long as they possibly can. So.
Yep.
Ken, did you have a question?
No, listening, thoroughly enjoying it.
I think you asked, what is it about Magdalene?
Oh yes, what was it? Yeah.
Her testimonies or her own book has been ripped apart, and then if you go and look for her books that's been removed, it's in fractions and sections, and if you try to go into your scriptures itself, she was the one that was actually telling the rest of the apostles to get your britches up and get to work. He showed us how to do this. You need man up. He made us men. Let's go and spread the word. But they try to knock her completely out and make her look like to be, I would say, a word of I don't want to say ugly words, kind of like a Jezebel in itself, but they paint her in an ugly light, which actually Yahushua himself spoke to her a whole lot more and in detail because she understood him completely instead of having to have ears to hear or eyes to see.
Doesn't that scroll say that she was married to Yahusha? And so it may not be legitimate?
Wait, which scroll?
The Mary Magdalene scroll that's really fractured. People are teaching the Mary Magdalene scroll, and it's saying that she was married to Yahusha and that he had a wife.
I've never read it myself, honestly. I can't say. But if it does say that's definitely incorrect and not true. But I personally have not read them because, I've heard what Belinda said is, they're Gnostic writing, so I just kind of never read them. So I can't say 100%. I've just heard they're Gnostic, so I just didn't touch them.
Possibly the mysticism.
Mama Lotus, did you read the scroll on Mary Magdalene?
I do not have a complete apocrypha as of now, but I have listened to many, just like Christopher Glenn and other things like that, and in interpretations and listening. I would guess you would call that listening to be approved, being I am still young in my journey, even though I am very old. But I'm very, more or less a babe in my journey in itself.
Oh, no, you're fine. But did it say anything about Mary Magdalene being married to Yahusha in that? Do you remember hearing that at all?
Not in one of them, but in another one, it did. Somebody did try to break down lineage, say that she was married to him, and that would have and had children on her side, but there were like 3 different Marys that was in there, and it broke it down. I have to go back and figure out what video broke that one down, being I don't have the apocrypha books and the removed tags and all, just like y'all do. I'm very new to coming to truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I know you're new, but in let me just make an observation from what I'm seeing. A lot of new people are coming in and are getting this information ridiculously fast. So don't worry that if you say you're new, don't worry about it. You're going to be getting so much so quickly.
It makes me wonder if it's from I was trying to say mysticism, but Jewish mysticism. I wonder if it's part of their teachings about Mary Magdalene supposedly marrying Yahusha.
It is. I think it's the whole discrediting
of him being a Messiah.
Of him, right. That's their way of making him more earthly, manly than
instead
divine.
Of fulfilling Yah's purpose.
And also redirecting Mary Magdalene because she was the one that was, that talked to the angels when she approached the tomb. I think it's just a redirection of trying to put the woman in her womanly spot, making her maybe a wife. But I've never personally even read the Apocryphal of Mary Magdalene. But I've also heard the rumor that she was with Yahusha, and that that's not what he came here to do.
Exactly.
I listened to a lady read that scroll, but she was also into yoga, and she was also into mysticism. So I had to discount. I mean, I listened to her for a while. She was called it was like the Esoteric Channel or something. And she was a truth seeker, and so I did listen to her reading that scroll, and it just because of the person who was reading it and being a yoga instructor, I couldn't take it seriously. And with being married, Mary Magdalene, them saying that she was married to the Savior. So
there was a group. I'm trying to remember the name of them. A Merovingian dynasty. And they claim that Jesus married Mary Magdalene, and they had a daughter named Anne or something like that, and that the Holy Grail is the bloodline, and they have it. I came across that years ago, and I do not know what. I think there's more than one writings attributed to Mary Magdalene, and they might come from different sources. So I would be interested in examining this whole thing, because I really don't think the however you say it, whatever it is, Vingian Holy Grail bloodline, what they're doing is from our Abba. I didn't pick up his spirit there. But I would like to see about discerning whatever anybody else has with Mary Magdalene, and praying and asking the Father to guide me into what might be left of something that she actually did bless the community with back then, if she did,
Have you seen the depictions of the Last Supper? The woman to his right, I believe, they say is Mary Magdalene.
In the Da Vinci Code? Leonardo da Vinci, when he did the paintings, depicted a very feminine looking woman. I watched the Da Vinci Code. They go into the bloodline of Messiah and Mary Magdalene, and the Holy Grail and everything. It's very, very mysticist, very occultish. It falls along the lines of all of that, but it is very interesting that Leonardo da Vinci has very interesting paintings, and I believe that he was also a part of, a secret society that hides occult symbolism in his paintings. That's just my opinion, though.
I would agree, honestly.
Very talented man. Unfortunately, just, I don't,
And the sister who brought that up, it wasn't a reproof. This is just a conversation. And that's what we do. We just converse and bring things up. So it wasn't to be negative towards you. I appreciate all your input.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. I wasn't taking offense or
Oh,
anything.
not you, the new, I forget it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Mama Lotus, you mean?
Yeah, Mama Lotus, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, none of this is reproof. Just all of us know that there's so much lies mixed in with the truth, and they make things so appealing, but it's to just hide and twist what the truth truly is.
I took no offense whatsoever. I am here to listen and to learn. And if something comes to mind, that's when I point something out to see if y'all have ever heard or this, that, and other. It wouldn't, to me, logically, it really wouldn't make no sense for Yahushua to be married to her, maybe in spirit, but not by having children in itself on that end. Because if so, how would he go back up to the heavens, if that makes sense? Because that would be like kind of like the fallen mating with the women in Enoch.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's a great point.
If I was a poor painter, I would paint anything for money, and if they told me to put a woman there, I put a woman there just for the dosh.
Ken.
Right. I mean, he had a benefactor. Everything was covered in his life. That's really an interesting thought. Thank you, Ken.
Something interesting about Leonardo da Vinci's paintings is, especially the one about the Last Supper, and somebody was mentioning this in one of their studies, that the apostles are depicted as old men, and yet they weren't old men. They were young. I think the oldest was Peter, maybe. But they were in their 20s. And some of them were still working with their fathers on the fishing boats before Yahushua, started rallying them together. So, they weren't old, with gray beards or anything like that. They were very much young.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, what he was doing with his painting was symbolism. And, the beard and the gray hair and stuff would denote wisdom, right?
Very true. Gray beard, gray hair would be noted as wisdom, yes. But if you actually think about symbolism in the painting itself, where does Yahushua sit at that table? And how many apostles were there? And if you think about it in that aspect, you're actually looking at your zodiac calendar that you're talking about now.
That could well be, but I always thought he was reclining and he put a towel around his waist and washed their feet.
Yeah, that's the story. That's what we get from the New Testament.
I do believe it was Mary that covered Yahushua in the oil herself.
Yeah.
On that one.
And her sister was complaining because she wasn't helping her prepare.
See, there you go, complaining. You shouldn't be doing it. You do what you're told to do, and the Spirit leads you to do.
Is it Mary Magdalene and Mary and Martha, two different Marys?
I'm not quite sure on that one yet. I would think, but I'm not too sure. So please don't take my word on this one. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Complaining. Yeah, it was Martha complaining about Mary sitting at Yeshua's feet. So I don't know if they were the same Mary that washed his feet. There's
Yeah,
because
that's really interesting. It just depends on whose writings you're reading as to how they connect up the different Marys.
That is pretty interesting. Should dig deeper into that. I've actually
one of
been
the
reading
Marys.
so there's. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just one of the Marys was the brother Lazarus, the sister of Lazarus. So.
Yeah.
Right, and some people thought that was Mary Magdalene. And there's other like little stories here and there about how Simon the leper had whenever she was young had used her wrongly, and I won't go into exactly how, but people could know. And then she was like put out on her own. Their parents had died, and so she was so ashamed that she went out on her own, and then they were able to, our Savior was able to heal her. And that, of course, her heart, I mean, this was her uncle's house. She did show up. She did anoint his feet, and in gratefulness. And his attitude was, well, if he really know what kind of woman she was, he wouldn't let her touch her. And it was a total rebuke to that him leading her into sin. And he asked for, basically violating his position and his authority as uncle. And then she was sent off, or had to go off by herself. And it really, really touched me how our Savior didn't he publicly rebuked him for basically denouncing her, but he did not expose the bigger picture. Now that's one story that's come down through history on how she was this, the sister of Lazarus and Martha. And there was Mary Cleopas, who was apparently related to Mary, the mother of our Savior, whether through marriage from Joseph, or literal sister or cousin, because a lot of times they called sisters and brothers and cousins, they called them sisters and brothers. And I'm trying to remember how else that works, but I thought it was really interesting just digging into the Mary, all these Marys around our Savior.
Then the name was Miriam because King James put Mary in there for Mary, and put James in there, which was Jacob. So I just was thinking that as we were talking.
For the Virgin Mary, and hey, I did all this stuff back before it was Miriam in my heart and mind. So.
Oh yeah, it just comes to mind because I say Mary too, but Miriam, yeah.
That's my cousin's name. My cousin named her daughter Miriam. Y'all, it's been very nice chatting with y'all and studying and then going over scriptures with y'all. But I will have to call this an evening, and I hope y'all have a wonderful evening and rest and the rest of your. Well, you know what I'm trying to say. Your next meeting will be next Sunday. Is that right on your calendar?
Yeah, next Sunday.
Okay, and I will go over the things that you have sent into the chat, the Apocrypha things, and I'll see y'all next Sunday. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you, sister. Shalom. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's a very interesting topic, though. So maybe something we should dig deeper into, huh?
Right.
Because there was many Miriams.
Hey, sister, did you say your name was Ariana or something like that? Or is she still with us?
I think she already got out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, she left already. I think it was Ariana. I think you're right. Yeah, interesting stuff. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to add or any discoveries they've made?
Yeah, Jeremy, you said that you were you were doing the Zoom call. Is that going to be today or when is that?
Well, check my email again really quick. I was actually just about to do that, but I sent Jackson. Oh, he said no meeting tonight. He's been in the hospital. Okay, so yeah, I was actually just gonna check that because I'd sent him a message earlier. Because usually he sends an email like what time it's gonna start. I hadn't got that, so I sent him a message earlier today, and he just got back. He said he's been in the hospital, so it's being rescheduled.
Oh, okay. Well, good job with
Yeah,
the stuff that you were going to present to him, and I'm going to try to. I've never been on Zoom before. Is it like Telegram?
yeah, it's similar. I mean, it's different here and there.
It
Be
is really
careful.
easy. It is easy. It's kind of like this. You just have to know where your camera button is and your mic button is, and
Okay.
yeah,
I'll
it's
need to.
easy.
I think
I'll need to try to
it's a bit
download
like,
it.
yeah, they've got tinier buttons at the bottom, really tiny buttons at the bottom. So that's the thing. It's not like this one, which has got a massive button in the middle.
Okay.
And it's at the bottom left-hand corner. It's really tiny. But yeah, it's fine. It's okay. I was going to say, it's nothing. Jackson, he's not to do with Congregation of Elohim, is he? That's not the name of the fellowship or anything. There's another guy called Jackson who we know, who's from Congregation of Elohim, who do, I think they do Zadok. It's not him. It's a different guy.
Well, he does Zadok. He's Zadok. I think he does a similar method to ours, but it's Dr. Jackson Schneider.
But you don't know the name. Is it just his name, or is it a name of a?
It's actually it's similar to ours. It's because he uses Yahad, but he spells it Yahad without the C. It's just the H.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the Yahad. Yeah. No, it's like the Yahad Fellowship or something.
The guy that I was talking about, the one who was talking at the last Sukkot, he was from the Congregation of Elohim, and we were like a bit wary. Well, we met him before, basically. We met before we went to Sukkot, and we attended their Zoom meeting, and Joe Jackson is the other leader, but it's a different Jackson. It's not Jackson Snyder. It's, I guess, a different Jackson. But they're the ones that are very, very, it's very formal, really formal. So they have like they're Zadok, but they have like a program, and they say like we're going to spend 20 minutes praying, and they have literally the names of the people that are praying for in the congregation, and it's very, very formal. It's like, I mean, seriously, I'll be very uncomfortable going to that place because it's like it literally looks like you have to wear a suit or something. It's like so formal, and we just remain quiet most of the time because it's just peculiar. But I understand now that he's done a lot of talking about the, I forgot what it's called. You know what you're talking about? The rules, community rule. So, I know. I just wanted to check if it's the same guy. Anyway, I'm going to go as well because I've got 11 o'clock here. Not that late for me, but I've got things to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you're not going on there tonight then. So he's not well. So it might be another week maybe.
Yeah, I got to finish reading the emails, which I'll do after our fellowship here. But he wants to reschedule it basically, so I'll have to get him. Oh, Sky Tonight is the app Marissa uses. That's right.
Sky Tonight.
Yeah, Sky Tonight. Katrina put it there in chat.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Katrina. And Claire, shalom.
Shalom.
I hope you have a good night.
Was there a video for what Marissa did? That was a YouTube thing that was shared at that time, was it? There was a video.
Yeah,
there.
It's
Okay.
discussion. I had them up here. Hold on one sec.
I think I saw it come up when she was speaking. I'll have a look.
It's hold on. Let me find it.
It's okay, don't share it again. I think I remembered it. I think I might have even opened it, so it's probably on my YouTube.
Yeah, one's discussion. So one is discussion 23 and the other is discussion 19. Here, I'll just reply.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shalom.
So,
Hey, Claire.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Claire, this is Weezer or Heidi. I messaged you in Telegram, so maybe we can correspond. Okay, if you have time.
Well, I've just noticed. You see, what I just find it so hard to keep up with your chat. I really want to keep up with your chat. Just don't have time to sit there constantly, and your chat goes on, all the time because your hours are different to ours. So by the time it's like you start chatting 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you go on in the early hours of the morning, you guys. So yeah, I only really go on there at the weekend, so I miss half of it, and then I discovered that loads of people have been messaging me privately. So now I've got to check it. I'll have a look for you then. I'll look for your messages next. All right then.
Thanks you.
For telling me. Okay. Bless you. Shalom.
Thank you, and shalom, and thank you for joining.
Shalom.
So yeah, no Zoom meeting tonight. It'll probably happen again next week. I was kind of suspecting that as I saw his Facebook post that he was in the hospital. So, prayers for Jackson, prayers for his healing. So yeah, so I guess since Dustin wasn't able to continue his presentation, ours will have to be bumped again, unfortunately. But it's okay. It's all in Yahuwah's timing, and who knows what Yahuwah is going to reveal to us between now and then. Because every week one of us is finding something, and it's just more witnesses and confirmations to this calendar. All praise to the Most High. Yeah, so if anyone has anything they'd like to talk about or anything they'd like to add or any questions, feel free. Claire said she heard about a book that said Yahusha brought a bird back to life at age 13. I've not heard about that. Yeah, I would say New Age or occult. Yeah, just like you said.
Yeah, there was one that was just horrific about the early life of Jesus, and it was talking about how he he cursed a boy and he died, and I mean, because he was angry and stuff like that. And it was just like, what? Don't think so.
No way. There's no way. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a Muslim friend. We're quite close, actually. We got on really well, and we spend a lot of time chatting about scriptures and stuff. He's what I would say is a good Muslim. He's married a Polish lady, and he goes to his prayers on Friday, and he has got no sort of any hard intent in his heart or anything like that. But he asked me to take him up to London to pick up a car for him. So I drove him up there. We discussed, we just discussed all the way. And he mentioned that in the Quran that Jesus held a bird and breathed into the bird and it became alive. And I think that's where the story came from.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's a lot of the Muslims obviously they take their line from Ishmael, but they see Jesus Jesus as a Messiah, as a prophet, not as a Messiah. They see him as a prophet. They actually do revere him, and it's interesting that their line from Ishmael kind of distorts a little bit, and they then go into if you think of Islam and the Quran, what happens with the Quran is they're not allowed to read the Quran independently. So they have a Quran which they read out aloud, but if they have any problems with the Quran, they have to go to what's called an imam, and the imam will then interpret things to their own political or religious or faith way of looking at it. So there's no sort of two witnesses or no way of dealing with things, or no other way of sort of investigating further. Do you know what I mean?
So they don't have like a Bible like we have to look back at. It has to be. I think I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. They don't have other writings to compare it to, kind of thing.
You there, brother?
Oh, we lost him.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
But did anybody else understand that? Like, oh, is he back on, Ken?
Yeah, I'm back on.
Okay.
So they would go to an imam to ask for a further interpretation of something that's not quite black and white in the Quran, as it were, and it's up to the imam then to sort of give that interpretation. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, what I've noticed about Islam is that it's a very much like Christianity. It's very sort of community sort of orientated. This 40-day feast it's a feast for a full moon, feast for a moon stage called Ramadan. And basically, they don't eat during the day, but come nighttime, they will feast like, pardon the expression, like pigs. And they will actually feast basically as much as they can during the night and wake up early morning to eat as much as they can before the next day, which is sort of like a bit of a, that's not really fasting, is it? Do you know what I mean? So when they go onto this 40-day feast, they're not really doing a 40 fast. They're not really doing a 40-day fast. What they're doing is not eating during the day. They're eating like as much as they can at night time. And we got some troubles here in the UK with some of the bin collectors were going on strike, and the TV people interviewed some of the Muslim community saying, "How do you feel about these bin strikes?" And they said, "Well, as you know, during Ramadan, we've got far much more trash to get rid of, i.e., got loads of more food to get rid of than usual, because they just eaten through the night." So I thought it was quite funny. So it's more of a community-based sort of faith, a bit like Christianity, and there's no real guidance except they have to learn Arabic to do their things.
Now, Ken, they do eat biblically clean, right? Like they don't eat pork.
Oh, they will eat shellfish and prawns and stuff like that, without a doubt.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how it is. I really don't know how it is, because a good Christian taxi guy would take you home. But a good Muslim taxi guy would take you home and offer you, "Oh, do you want any tobacco? Do you want any knockoff beer or liquor? Oh, do you want me to set you up with a girl down the road?" So I really don't see that their faith corresponds with that community rule or the faith structure that they so strongly hold on to.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I think, don't Muslims, they agree with like the Torah, right? They just have some extra things like the Pharisees. Or am I incorrect about that? I'm not sure.
It's really interesting. Because of my he was a neighbour of mine in 2000 and must be 2019, and we were side by side for 2 years, and we kind of just got on. We hooked up quite nicely, and we could talk about things. He was a good guy. Still is a good guy. We still see each other. And when we see each other, we hug each other and stuff like that. He respects me, I respect him. There's no sort of malice between us in any shape, way, or form. But I can see that their faith structure, without a doubt, is open for corruption and open for mind change and brainwashing, without a doubt. Just because of the fact that the person in charge of the mosque or the imam is the man that they look to, rather than looking to the one creator. Oh yeah, do you know what I mean? They look towards the person that's at the head telling them what to do, and that person can be quite, well, if he's manipulative or has a political stance or something, then obviously that's going to filter down.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And so, question from Jermaine brought up in chat. So, which is a question Katrina had brought up earlier, actually. So there's the verses, throughout the New Testament, Mark 6:2, Luke 4:16, Luke 6:6, Luke 13:10, Luke 4:31, where it appears like the Pharisees and Messiah had the same Sabbath, or something is going on there. And I think Sister Ellie said she had an answer that she would like to give for this question. Are you still there, sister? Yeah, it looks like it.
Getting back in, sometimes my phone will go completely black, and then I have to get everything back in. So I took out a study that I did before years ago. I made a presentation on the Sabbath in history taking up the Sabbath challenge, and I was told to keep it under 45 minutes, for the presentation. And, I like to show everything. And so this doesn't show everything, just pertinent things enough to get the big picture. And I'm not planning on taking 45 minutes right here. But I would like to bring some things to your attention because of the Saturday Sabbath myth, and how they introduced it, because the usurpers win, right? And what was going on in the Second Temple with the lunar calendar. Some Adventists, which I was raised, they believe that the Catholic Church changed Saturday to Sunday, and that Saturday was sacred at some point in time, and now Sunday is. And the Pope claims that that's right. But as things are being more and more exposed, as the day comes brighter, the dawning, the light comes, we learn that there was a lot of hiding in history. And Jeremy, you read about Sabbado meaning Sabbath. And the people who called Sabbado Sabbath were the Second Temple usurpers, as far as I can tell. And when I went into Josephus and Philo, I saw that they kept not only the new moon by the moon, they also kept the Sabbaths by the moon with the phases and everything. And then I dug into further and learned that although they've done this crazy stuff with trying to keep us from seeing that Saturn's day was not the Sabbath, actually, of either one of the groups of the Jews, either the usurpers or the other ones, some really, really interesting details came out that I think that the veil was over our eyes about because of the way history was written. So may I just go through and pick out some things that would help get a bigger picture on the answer to that, what Jermaine was talking about, as far as the Sabbath? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. And remember that I wrote this back whenever I didn't know this calendar. So I'm going to have to I see it through different eyes than I did. So I'm going to have to be very careful with how I go through it. I don't have it reset in this new, in my new understanding yet, but that'll come. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
The Sabbath Challenge. Patrick Madrid, a conservative Catholic scholar speaking on EWTN, Global Catholic Radio Network, and Abba, please be with us. Send your spirit, your Ruach, to guide all of our thoughts. And please give me clarity on what to share so the picture is able to be seen, because I can't I don't have any idea how to show this thing on the graphs and stuff on Telegram. So please fill in for me. Give people in their minds being able to see this thing. And thank you. Okay, so they, in January 2005-2006, answered the claim that the Catholic Church changed the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday with this statement: there was a distinct break between the Old Testament requirements dealing with the Sabbath worship. They, wanted to show that Christianity was distinct from Judaism. The other thing we should remember, too, is that our calendar that we follow, including the Seventh-day Adventists, is not only a calendar that was devised by the Catholic Church, but also is a calendar that's based upon the solar year, not the lunar year. And the Jewish calendar that was observed in the time of Christ follows a lunar calendar. And I will clarify that the lunar calendar had to do with the Second Temple usurpers. It was not our Messiah's calendar. So the great irony is that even the Seventh-day Adventists themselves are not worshiping on exactly the same Sabbath day as the Jews in the time of Christ. This is a very serious challenge to us as Sabbath keepers. Is it possible that this Catholic scholar is correct? Is it possible that those of us who keep the seventh-day Sabbath on Saturday of the Gregorian calendar are not keeping the same Sabbath that our Messiah did? And I assumed at that time that he was keeping that same calendar, so please bear with me. We cannot take lightly or disregard this claim if we desire to properly represent our Heavenly Father's ways. He is in the process of restoring light to his children that has been obscured since the outpouring of his Spirit at Pentecost some 2,000 years ago. This challenge to our traditional understanding of Sabbath keeping on Saturday is not an emergency for our loving Heavenly Father and his Son. They made sure that evidence has been preserved in the historical records that will either confirm or disprove the claim of the Catholic scholar quoted above. We can trust that our Heavenly Father will make the truth of his Sabbath clear to his obedient, truth-seeking children. He will show us how his Son and his obedient children of our Messiah's time honored his Sabbath. So let us take the time, and I would clarify that he will expose how the disobedient kept a Sabbath right here, okay? So let us take the time to carefully and prayerfully consider this claim for our Heavenly Father's seventh-day Sabbath. Let us begin by noting the records of two historians that many Sabbath keepers believe will support us in keeping the seventh-day Sabbath on Saturday, like the Jews do today. Saturn's Day, Josephus and Dio Cassius. Let us compare the writings of the Roman historian Dio Cassius, AD 150 to 220, with those of the Jewish historian Josephus, AD 37 to 100, concerning the wars between the Romans and the Jews. Dio Cassius's testimony shows that the Jews did not fight offensively on Saturn's Day during the Roman invasions of Jerusalem in 63 BC, 37 BC, and AD 70. Roman History, Book 37, chapters 16 to 17. Josephus, AD 37 to 100, wrote that the Jews didn't fight offensively on the Sabbath. Wars of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 7, Section 3, Book 2. Anyway, I have the addresses here, and Antiquities of the Jews. And if you note the dates here, with Dio Cassius, Roman invasions of Jerusalem in 63 BC, 37 BC, and AD 70. Now, this was long after the usurpers took the calendation away from the solar calendar. Okay, so this seems pretty straightforward. Historical documentation shows that the Jews were keeping the Sabbath on Saturn's Day, or Saturday. Why would anyone claim that observing Saturday on the calendar we have today is not what the Jews were doing in the time of Christ? Is there more to the picture than we might suspect? So digging deeper, and some of this has already been, Jeremy brought it up earlier, even today on this call, when he was going through his presentation. Saturn's Day was the first day of the pagan planetary week before and during the time of Dio Cassius. Dio Cassius, or Cassius Dio, he shows up in history with with his name both ways. Also wrote that Saturn's day was the first day of the planetary week. Then came Sun's day, Moon's day, Mars' day, Mercury's day, Jupiter's day, and Venus's day. And there are several references, I think many of which, especially Sunday sacredness and Roman paganism, many of which that Jeremy already covered earlier. Calendar perplexity. This information about the seventh-day Sabbath of the Jews being observed on Saturn's day, the first day of the pagan planetary week, leaves more questions than answers. How could the Jews have been keeping Sabbath on the seventh day of the week, while the Romans around them were claiming that they were keeping Saturn's day, which was on the first day of the pagan planetary week? Our Abba has faithfully left clues from history that will help us find the true seventh-day Sabbath that, now I will say, the usurpers honored while our Messiah walked the earth. Timekeeping history. Among all early nations, the lunar months were the readiest large divisions of time, and were divided into 4 weeks corresponding to the phases or quarters of the moon. In order to connect the reckoning by weeks with the lunar month, we find that all ancient nations observe some peculiar solemnities to mark the day of the new moon. Popular and Critical Bible Encyclopedia, 1904, page numbers noted. Sabbath and new moon, or Rosh Chodesh, both periodically recurring in the course of the year. The new moon still is, and the Sabbath originally was, dependent on the lunar cycle. Universal Jewish Encyclopedia, page 410. And then the Bible Encyclopedia Biblica, 1899 edition, says, this intimate connection between the week and the month was soon dissolved. It is certain that the week soon followed a development of its own, and it became the custom without paying any regard to the days of the month, that is, the lunar month. And so that the new moon no longer coincided with the first day of the month. So that's again referring to what the usurpers were doing. And it's good that I'm able to catch this while I'm going. These Bible encyclopedias were published around the turn of the 20th century. They tell us that all early nations, and I would say that Israel was not necessarily an early nation that this would apply to at this point. They tell us that all early nations kept time according to the moon cycles, with 4 weeks within the months. These weeks may be referred to as quasi-weeks, in contrast to modern weeks, which are 7-day uninterrupted cycling weeks. The Universal Jewish Encyclopedia also indicates that the Jews, or the nation of Israel, kept the Sabbath according to the lunar cycle sometime in their past history, but that practice has changed. And apparently they were keeping it during the last 160 years CE, BCE, or what they call BC, before the calendar change and got us into AD. So let's see if there's anything in history that might help us verify these claims. Is there some verifiable sense of when the early nations were keeping time by the lunar cycle, and what might have happened to change that practice? Now, this is something that has become very much a question for me, but I am the changes in calendation with what the usurpers have written about history. So please bear this in mind as I'm looking at it, as I'm sharing it. After about 700 BC, historical records of various nations' calendars around the world show that they added about 5 days to their year in various ways. Something apparently happened in the heavens to change timekeeping worldwide. And Immanuel Velikovsky documents this in Worlds and Collisions, the year of 360 days, pages 333 to 361. And then Ages and Chaos documents an additional 600 years mistakenly added to Egyptian history because of the confusion regarding the rulers' co-regencies. When that time is taken out, it coincides perfectly with Israel's history in the scriptures. This also indicates that the first recorded solar-only calendar in history, attributed to Egypt and thought to have begun around 1200 BC, didn't actually begin until after 700 BC. That I have in serious question, because of the what I've been learning recently. But now we can see that all the nations of the world, and I will say that our Abba's nation that came about after the Tower of Babel and all of the fallen angels worshiping, the people worshiping all the fallen angels and their various calendars, they might have had these things, but our Abba's people didn't do that. In fact, I was looking at how Noah had these days of remembrance, how it was 360 days, it was 364 days, and how Enoch said to handle this thing. So everybody knew that a true sacred year was 360 days. And so that's what they did. Now we are more than 1,000 years out from Noah. And then there's this cataclysm that goes on around 700 BC. And all of a sudden, everybody wakes up and says, oh, well, we're not going to do this according to tradition anymore. We're watching the sun. Didn't have the respect for Noah that the fathers had. And they didn't pay as much attention anymore. And so that's why they added the days the way they did. That's my picture now. So after the change in the lights in the heavens around the time of Hezekiah, or after 700 BC, the ruling nations of the world continued for centuries using a lunar month tied to a solar year, with the 13th month added as needed. Now these things can be definitely verified. Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece all ruled the world with a lunar solar calendar. And now if I was to add something here, I would put in about the Seleucids that came in and caused the compromise with Jason and ran Onias out, because I like I say, I'm learning more. Julius Caesar was the first ruler of Rome, who was also the Pontifex Maximus of the Babylonian mystery religion. He was responsible for the religious and civil timekeeping of his nation. When he came into power, the Roman lunar solar calendar was not accurate. There had been no consistency in the way the 13th month had been added to the solar years, since the calendar had to change after the 8th century BC to account for the longer solar year. Julius Caesar decided that he needed to make an accurate Roman calendar, and he had the authority of his position to do so. He was told by Sosigenes, his scientific calendar maker, that the moon was causing the problems that they were having with the calendar, and the only way to keep time accurately was to leave the moon out of it. So the Julian civil solar-only calendar, with a 365-day year of 12 months divided into 29, 30, or 31 days per month, was implemented for the Roman Empire in 46 BC. Let's learn more about that calendar. The early Romans observed an 8-day market week. The planetary week was at first preeminent, and made use of planetary names based on the names of pagan deities, and continued even after Constantine made the Christian week, beginning on Sunday, official on the civil calendar. Constantine changed the Julian civil calendar in 321. When he did this, he replaced Julius Caesar's 8-day market week with the 7-day week we use today. As we connect the dots so far, we may recognize that in 46 BC, Julius Caesar brought in a new method of civil timekeeping into the Roman Empire. This calendar did not replace the religious lunar month and pagan planetary week that was observed by the Roman populace. The Fasti, found in the Baths of Titus, show the type of lunar calendar that was used in concurrence with the newer Roman civil calendar. And that's what you referred to as that went into the chat, that picture with Saturn and the 30 days, 15 on each side, and the peg calendar, whatever you called it. I had a different name for it. Right. And then in the center, it had the pegs of. Now, my understanding of this at this time is that this was how they kept track of the lunar month that was not on the calendar. And I read about how in novels, even in the 2nd century, they had the lunar calendar kept by the populace with the pagan planetary week on one wall, and the Roman civil calendar with its 8-day or noonday with the inclusive reckoning, that they did civil business on the other wall. And they had to keep track of, because they were also quite involved in governing Judea. They had to keep track of when the Second Temple Sabbaths were. So they had both. They had to be aware of both to govern, because when it came on their Sabbath day, they wouldn't deliver it that day. They would deliver it the day after. And these were parts.
So really quick. So the noon days, it like began the weeks and ended them on that specific calendar. So sometimes it would be 8 or 9 or even 10 days in between.
Right.
So it would fall on a different one of those days of the week, beginning with Saturday or Saturn's Day.
Well, see, the noonday would. So how this goes together, I think it goes together a little bit differently from what I've found than what I'm hearing, and I can show you why. Because we our information is probably only as good as whatever our resources were. And so the people that I have not found support for them having Saturn's Day at the beginning of the 8-day week. I've only seen support for the 7-day pagan planetary week and their 8-day week being a separate count. And so it might fall out on some of these pagan planetary days, but it wasn't. The driving factor was the noonday, not the pagan planetary week. If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, because that would make more sense, because, like how the Gregorian month days today, they're always on a different day of the week. It would be in that same aspect, their noon days would fall on these different days of the week in like that same sense,
Right.
So, wow, it makes sense, because that's how it would float around, basically. It makes sense.
Okay, good. The fasti found in the Baths of Titus show the type of lunar calendar that was used in concurrence or with the newer Roman civil calendar. The Roman populace was still honoring the religious lunar month and pagan planetary week, with Saturn's day as the first day of the week, even after Constantine changed the civil calendar. And that was something that, as I dug into further, and like I said, I don't have all the documentation here, but as I dug into it further, there was resistance to his Christian planetary week, and they kept honoring the pagan planetary week on their lunar observing calendar for a long time before it became before it died out. So let us look at the relationship of the lunar pagan planetary week to the Hebrew lunar week and month. And I'm going to put usurpers Hebrew lunar week, month, and week here, just for clarity for us. The Babylonian months. The weeks do not continue on a regular cycle regardless of the moon. Every month has 4 weeks beginning with the new moon. Every month must begin with the first day of the first week as determined by the moon. Babylonian Monologies and the Semitic Calendars, page 89 by Assyriologist Stephen Langdon. The Hebrew months. The Hebrew Sabbaton was celebrated at intervals of 7 days corresponding to the moon's phases. Encyclopedia Biblica, 1899. Can we verify the above encyclopedia statement about the Hebrew Sabbath? Let us look at the testimony of the Jewish historian Philo, 20 BC to AD 50, who was a contemporary of our Messiah. The moon perfects in its own configurations each 7th day. Works of Philo, translated by C.D. Young, Allegorical Interpretation 1, and then IV, that's 4. Well, I won't read it. It's found on pages 25 and 26. This looks like the moon might have something to do with the weeks of the month when we compare it to the record of the Encyclopedia Biblica above. So let us look further to see if this is Philo's intention. Philo again, Passover in the moon. For it is said in the scripture, on the 10th day of this month, let each of them take a sheep according to his house, in order that from the 10th there may be consecrated to the 10th, that is to, and as I've got Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh in here, the sacrifices which have been preserved in the soul, which is illuminated in 2 portions out of 3, until it is entirely changed in every part and becomes a heavenly brilliancy, like a full moon at the height of its increase at the end of the 2nd week. That's on Mating with Preliminary Studies, on page 313. Philo shows above that the 10th day of the month is related to the moon's 2/3 portion of illumination, and the end of the 2nd week is related to the full moon. My late husband taught me to be able to look at the moon, where it was in the sky, and to know at certain times, and to know what date of the month it was. And so we did not understand that there was a way to tell by the sun when it was. But so we all thought that the moon was the way it worked. The Sabbath and Feast of Unleavened Bread in Tabernacles. But to the 7th day of the week, he has assigned the greatest festivals, those of the longest duration at the periods of equinox, both vernal and autumnal each year, appointing 2 festivals for these 2 epochs, each lasting 7 days. The one takes place in the spring, being for the perfection of what is being sown, and the one which falls in autumn, being a feast of thanksgiving for the beginning for the bringing home of all the fruits which the trees have produced. The Decalogue 30. Philo tells us, okay, where did it go? That the seventh day of the week, or the Sabbath, which they understood at that time, begins the 7-day festivals in the spring and fall of the year. The scriptures also tell us that both of the 7-day feasts, unleavened bread and tabernacles, begin on the 15th day of their respective months. See Leviticus 23, 5 and 6 and 34. And this feast is begun on the 15th day of the month, in the middle of the month, on the day on which the moon is full of light, in consequence that on the providence of Yah, taking care that there shall be no darkness in that day. Philo's Special Laws 2, the 5th Festival, section, it's page 155, or part 155. Comparing Philo's testimony about the moon's phases and his explanation that the spring and fall feasts begin on the 7th day when the moon is full of light at the end of the 2nd week, or the middle of the month, it is clear that the Sabbath day is related to the moon's phases. So connecting the dots. Let us connect dots and put this together. The 7th day of the week, which comes at the end of the 2nd week of each month, is a full moon, according to Philo. Do the scriptures give us any indication that Philo might have been observing the same Sabbath day that the children of Israel were observing when they came out of Egypt? And then, of course, it's Psalm 81:3, which, if anybody's really dug into that, it's not translated properly, but that's the way I understood it back then. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. That's, and it goes on. This he ordained in Joseph for testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden, and his hands were delivered from the pots. So that I've learned better, but understanding this is a view that many people hold. And brethren that are lunar Sabbath keepers and earnest in it, many of them really have studied. They were just brought into believing that the usurper's calendar was a true calendar that our Messiah honored. When Moses was given the direction to bring the children of Israel out of Egypt, he was first told, "This is the beginning of months to you," and then the Passover lamb and all that. This passage doesn't appear to say anything about the moon's phases. So then I quote things that I would not quote today to support the full moon, and I know was mistranslated. Philo's witness above confirms the scriptures, the encyclopedias, and other historical evidence. They all mesh together to show us that the Hebrew people were taught by the usurpers to observe a lunar month, and the full moon on the 15th day was the Sabbath day. Now that we've connected those dots, we can see that the Romans historians' references to the planetary week and Saturn's day and the Hebrews' weekly Sabbaths, usurpers' weekly Sabbaths, were tied to the lunar months. The records for the Babylonian and Hebrew months above show that the original month for both nations was related to the moon's phases. So it would have looked like this. And I don't have it. If you'd like to take a pencil or pen and write this and write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns, and then put Saturn's day, Sun's day, Moon's day, Mars' day, Mercury's day, Jupiter's day, and Venus's day above them, then you can see that if you go through and you make 30 days, you can see that Saturn's Day is the first day of the month and week for this Semitic calendar, this Babylonian calendar with the pagan planetary week. So since I can't show it to you, if you do this, you can see that Saturn's Day of the pagan planetary week was on the 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th days of the lunar month. Now, understanding this, that some people begin their count on the evening before. So they would say it's the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. But it's the same principle, how these calendars tie together. So how does this planetary week and lunar month calendar compare with the usurper's 7th-day Sabbath during the lunar month? So we have a new moon and the Sabbath over at the end of the 7 columns. And day 1 would be the second day of the month and the first day of the week. And so it would coincide with Saturn's Day for the people around them that were using this lunar calendar. And the 8th, the 15th, 22nd, and 29th, they would all coincide with Saturn's Day on the Babylonian lunar pagan planetary week. So now we can see how that would tie together. So if the part of this is that they said that if they had not observed the Sabbath on Saturn's Day in 63 BC, in 30-something BC, and in 70 AD, that Rome would not have overcome them in battle. And I thought that was really interesting, because that was after Rome had gone to the solar calendar. It was before and after Rome had gone to the solar calendar, and the populace was doing that pagan planetary week tied in with the lunar month with those pegs. And wherever, and I don't know if y'all have looked at an almanac, but wherever the moon goes into the next sign of the zodiac, you'd stick the peg there. And a lot of people do their planting and their gardening when it is propitious, whatever the word is, whichever planet was in ascendancy, or whichever zodiac was in ascendancy, as to what they would plant on those days, and what would be good to do on those days and what would not be good to do on those days. So, do we still have a calendar perplexity? If the pagan planetary week started with Saturn's Day on the first day of the week, how could the Jews be honoring Yah's command to keep his 7th-day Sabbath? Answer: the lunar pagan planetary week began with Saturn's Day on the new moon day, and the Hebrews' lunar week began with the day after the new moon day. They were keeping the usurper's 7th-day Sabbath on the day the pagans around them called Saturn's Day. Question: so when did the Babylonian lunar-based planetary week and month that began on Saturn's Day fall out of use? We noted above that even after Constantine officially replaced the civil 8-day market week that cycled continuously throughout the year with a 7-day Christian planetary week that begins on Sunday, which also cycled throughout the year with no regard to the moon, the pagan planetary week still persisted among the populace. Question: which calendar did the early Christians use? Answer: the early Christians had first adopted the Jewish 7-day week with its numbered weekdays. But by the close of the 3rd century AD, this began to give way to the planetary week, rest days, by Hutton Webster. Question: does Sabbath equal Saturday? Now we have a question that can only be answered by connecting the dots in the historical records. The Council of Laodicea, AD 362, commanded no one is to Judaize or be idle on the Sabbath, translated Saturday into English, but shall work on that day. But the Lord's day they shall not, they shall especially honor, and as being Christians shall, if possible, do no work on that day. If, however, they have found Judaizing, they shall be cut off from Christ. And Jeremy, you read this, and that is, it was that Sabbath was related to the lunar Sabbath in the usurper's calendar. And the Council of Laodicea was convened several decades after Constantine had changed the civil calendar and forbade unnecessary work on Sunday, the first day of the newly developed Christian planetary week, AD 321. Now the Catholic Church State Council was taking another step in enforcing Sunday, or the Lord's Day, the first day of the solar-only 7-day uninterrupted cycling week. Although in English, and you covered this too, Sabbath is translated as Saturday, the original language does not warrant it. Bishop Karl J. von Hoffel, a German scholar, theologian, and professor of church history, tells us in his book, History of the Councils of the Church, from the original documents, that both the Greek and Latin originals, the word Sabbath rather than Saturday is used. In AD 362, the original lunar-based 7th-day Sabbath of the scriptures, or of the usurpers, was forbidden to be honored in the Roman Empire. This indicates that there were enough people within the land governed by the Roman Empire who were still honoring the lunar Sabbath by abstaining from work that the state church felt threatened by the practice. They called it Judaizing, because that's what the Second Temple Jews did. Now that the whole Roman Empire was, quotes, Christian, the Pontifex Maximus's decree that Sunday is the Lord's Day was supported by the state church council, and he was to be honored in place of our Savior by abstaining from work on that day. So connecting the dots, original timekeeping was related to the lunar cycle. The Babylonians began their month on the new moon day, later called Saturn's day of the pagan planetary week, and had 4 weeks within their month. The usurping Hebrews began their month with a new moon day and began their first week on the 2nd day of the month. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar developed a civil solar on the calendar without the lunar months. He also implemented an 8-day market week. This had no bearing on the lunar pagan planetary week, which was still in use by the populace for centuries afterwards. 1st century AD, Philo, a Hebrew historian, linked the Sabbath of the scriptures, which they still do today, by the way, with the moon and the moon's phases. And he notes that the 15th day of the lunar month was the full moon and the 7th-day Sabbath, as was the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread in Tabernacles. Another Hebrew historian, Josephus, writes that the Jews did not fight offensively on the 7th-day Sabbath, and I will have to say on the usurper's 7th-day Sabbath. 2nd century AD, Roman historian Dio Cassius indicates that the Jews didn't fight offensively on Saturn's day. And this is like the only way it can work. In AD 321, Constantine replaced the 8-day market week on the Julian calendar with a 7-day Christian planetary week, with the uninterrupted cycling 7-day week that ended on Saturn's day. He encouraged abstaining from work on Sunday, or the Lord's Day. The Sanhedrin had been forbidden to meet in Judea, name changed to Palestine, to determine the beginning of the year on their lunar calendar. In AD 359, the Hillel II calculated calendar that used the Metonic cycle was implemented for the scattered Jewish nation and apparently integrated the Christian planetary week with the Roman Empire's Saturn's Day as the seventh-day Sabbath. In AD 362, observing the original or seventh-day Sabbath or the lunar Sabbath or Judaizing in the Roman Empire was strictly forbidden by the Council of Laodicea. They forbade Judaizing or abstaining from work on the Sabbath, not Saturday, of the lunar calendar, and required abstaining from work on Sunday or the Lord's Day, the first day of the newer Christian planetary week implemented on the Roman civil calendar by Constantine. When we recognize that the lunar month with the pagan planetary week was still in use after the Pontifex Maximus Constantine changed the civil calendar, as noted earlier, we may reasonably conclude that the usurpers, I concluded that our Messiah and the faithful ones were believers, were keeping the lunar calendar, but I don't see it that way now. Especially since the Church and State Council felt the need to make a law against Judaizing. The Hillel II calendar calculated the lunar solar years according to the Metonic cycle, and the new moon day was calculated to begin the lunar months for centuries ahead of that time. The rulers of the remaining Jews wanted those in the diaspora to honor their feasts at the same time wherever they might be in the world. It also integrated the Roman seventh day of the Christian planetary week called Saturn's Day into the Jewish calculated calendar. This would have spared its adherents the penalty for Judaizing by keeping the lunar Sabbath. Was the Catholic scholar right? By digging into history and connecting the dots, we've found that the Catholic scholar quoted at the beginning of this document is correct. Scriptures and history confirm that the seventh-day Sabbath on Saturday of the Gregorian calendar is not the same seventh-day Sabbath that the Hebrews observed during our Messiah's time. And see, this is the thing. The Jews were the lunar ones, and the those that kept the Zadok, they were thrown out of the whole loop, the whole understanding. And then later on, when it seemed that it was good, they would take this back and they would say, see, we always kept an uninterrupted 7-day cycling week. And see, this proves, because they didn't fight on Saturn's Day, this proves that that was a 7th-day Sabbath that we're observing today. It's the same as back then, and causing this double deception. And it's so amazing and so fascinating to understand how the double deception happened on a lunar calendar and on a solar calendar, neither of which were our Father's authorized calendar. We have been warned of one who would think to change times and laws is in Daniel 7:25, who would have imagined that the change in the 7th-day Sabbath would have been so subtle. Our Heavenly Father and His Son, Yeshua Messiah, have kept this record for us to uncover when knowledge is increased. He is bringing His children's attention to His ways that have been hidden from us for generations, so we can follow on to know Him better. This generation is blessed above measure with the light that is being restored to us. May our Abba bless you as you continue to study His Word and learn more about His Sabbath rest for your spirit, soul, and body. Hallelujah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think you destroyed that question. Yeah.
Would you like me to send it to you as is?
Yeah, sure.
Understanding that I don't understand it that way anymore, and what I interjected is the way I understand it now, but that I haven't typed it in and revised it yet.
Yeah, I love it. You know, I'm sure Katrina would love it too, because that's the answer to her question.
Yeah, please do. I was in and out because I was having dinner with the family, but that is solid. That's good. Because this morning when I woke up, I saw a post from Shaul's Sides, and he was going over how Sunday is, you know, the honorary day of the sun, but Saturday's the day. And I'm like, well, I took it, chopped it apart, and reposted it, saying, you know, pretty much Saturday is just the opposite ditch of the Sunday. And, but there was one concern that I had, which was all the scriptures that he put in that makes Messiah look like he was celebrating their Sabbath. And so we were discussing it this morning, and we kind of came to the conclusion that, you know, okay, so the verses given were Mark 6:2, and when the Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when the Sabbath had come, he began to teach at the synagogue. So it sounds to me like he's going and he's teaching in the synagogue of their Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what could it possibly really mean? Well, you know, Jeremy said, well, we know since that Passover, he celebrated with his disciples in the inner chamber. He ate the Passover meal. And so therefore he had to have had a different Sabbath. It had to be one day off. So was it that when Sabbath had come, maybe for the Jews, he began to teach, or was it when his Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue? It could be that when, you know, his particular. So that's why they wanted to, like, destroy him there, you know?
Yeah, I'm looking at that as, because I did lunar Sabbath for so many years, my late husband and I would show up at the Saturday keeping places on days that we saw as the Sabbath. We would show up on days that we didn't too. But there's at least 2 months in the year that they coincide, 2 lunar months in the year that they coincide. At least, depending on the year. So it could go either way. But
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to bring up too, is what if they coincided on these specific events that are mentioned? Because it's not like, it doesn't say it was, you know, every single Sabbath this happened. It was just on these certain ones the Pharisees would come. So what if it was just when the Sabbath days happened to coincide? The side knew it. Yeah.
And what if
Oh,
he
go ahead.
took that? What if he took that as a way to honor our Father and reach out to his children that were on a different calendar on a day that they would be able to take off time and listen? Because he always got invited. No matter what synagogue he showed up at, it seems like they would invite him to read. So that he could have done that. That could have been his missionary work.
Yeah, absolutely. And
the other one was, go ahead. I was going to go to the next one. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, my real quick, my thoughts was, you know, that doesn't prove a Saturday Sabbath either way. But yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So this was the tricky one. Luke 4:16. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. As his custom was, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. So we know that he was born in Nazareth, right? But in Luke 4:16, it says that he was born in Bethlehem he was born in Bethlehem, and he was raised in Egypt. Matthew 2:13. And when they left, see, a messenger of Yahuah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, "Arise and take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, to Mitzrayim, and remain there until I bring you word, for Herodes is about to seek the child to destroy him." So then in Matthew 2:14, and rising up, he took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herodes, to fulfill what was spoken by Yahuah through the prophet, saying, "Out of Mitzrayim I have called my son." So then we know that there was a temple of Onias in Egypt, Yochanan. So he went back to Nazareth at some point. But so then after Herodias died, when was that? See, a messenger of Yahuah appeared in a dream to Joseph in Mitzrayim, saying, "Arise and take the child and his mother and go into the land of Yasharel, for those seeking the life of the child are dead." And rising up, he took the child and his mother and came to the land of Yasharel. But hearing that Archelaus was reigning over Yehuda instead of his father Herodes, he was afraid to go there. And having been warned in a dream, he departed to the parts of Gilgal. Matthew 2:23, and came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, thus to fulfill what was spoken by the prophets, "He shall be called a Nazarene." So he might have went to the synagogue, but it would have been maybe on the Sabbath day he grew up with in Egypt at the temple of Onias.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
And he did what his habit was, and they knew him, and they invited him to read. And not sure, depending on what source we're reading, they may have been doing the lunar, but they may have been doing the solar. They may have been doing the same calendar he did. And it's not clear one way or another on that.
I guess it's really not that clear, because he clearly grew up in Egypt.
Well, he was back home before he was 12.
Okay.
Yeah, so that he grew up, he went to the land of Onias there, which was in Egypt, and that's where the sons of Zadok fled to as well. And actually we see at that particular time, that's when Egypt started following a solar calendar, and that's where the Septuagint came from. So I believe he had the proper calendar and everything kept by the sons of Zadok. And it's just these instances that, the Pharisees are coming to him on the Sabbath day. Just like today, our Sabbath day is corresponding to a Sunday on the Gregorian calendar. So in that same sense, it would be doing the same thing. Like even like last year, it corresponded with the Saturday. So we had the same Sabbath day. So the Sabbaths easily can fall on the same days. So that it shows, clearly the two Sabbaths were falling on the same days in those few instances that we see. We see that they were clearly following two calendars because, Passover itself shows that. So, yeah, like I said, either way, it's not showing Saturday, constant 7 days in a row is always the Sabbath, not the preserved Sabbath day. And yeah, Eli, you told or gave a lot of evidence to support that as well. We found some of the same stuff, with the noonday and the Roman peg calendar. But yeah, it all corresponds, and we see, Yeah, most of the world was going by a lunar calendar because, it was these Babylonians, Seleucid Empire, Romans. They had control of it. So, yeah, they were following the Babylonian calendar. Of course, it spread around. There's just when you dig deep like this, you see this corresponding information that they were all following these slivers of the moon. Messiah wasn't doing that, clearly.
Right.
And the sons of Zadok, they're the ones is in Ezekiel 44. They're the ones ordained by Yahuwah to keep the calendar and to settle disputes about the calendar as well. So we have their writings and we have their calendar and we see what it says. So we're just going to go with that. And we can walk it all through scriptures. It's all lining up. We even figured out, or I should say Marissa figured out, made more sense of how the prophetic year works and everything. It's just all praise to the Most High, and it works out so amazing. It's a group effort, Yeah, very, very affirming prayer.
So then there's also now it happened on Luke 6:6. Now it happened on another Sabbath also that he entered the synagogue and taught. I mean, he could have very well been on his Sabbath day. Again.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that whenever it calls it the Sabbath by his disciples, that it would be his understanding of the Sabbath that happened to coincide with their lunar.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then Luke 13:10, now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And then Luke 4:31, then he went down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbaths. Now, Libby said, well, teaching on the Sabbath, it could be like about the Sabbath. So she said she was watching a video which said that when it says he spoke on the Sabbath, it can also have the meaning of he spoke about the Sabbath. Maybe this was the reason why afterwards they wanted to throw him off a cliff.
No, that makes sense.
Well, he did that several times. He rebuked them for their Sabbath keeping.
Yeah. Wow, that makes so much sense. Because if he spoke about the Sabbath, like, hey, it's not the seventh day after a silver moon, it's this right here. This is what keeps them. And, he's probably catching the same kind of hate we catch when we say these things. And like he said, yeah, that's why they wanted to throw him off a cliff, basically. Wow.
Yeah, just like I think in one of the videos that Aaron teaches, he untied their Sabbath. So I think when he went and he spoke in Isaiah, proclaiming the acceptable year, and they wanted to destroy him.
Yeah, Sumi makes a good point, too. Maybe that's why he could teach in a synagogue on the Sabbath, because it was his Sabbath. Because on their Sabbath, someone else would be teaching. Interesting point.
Right. Yeah, it could have been on his, and he went into that synagogue when they're all there, started to speak, and boom. But then when he was like in the fields plucking grain and healing on the Sabbath, saying, he's Lord of the Sabbath. Like,
Yeah, that was probably the instances where the two Sabbath days would coincide with each other. So it would be both their Sabbaths. So they would go up to him knowing this. I mean,
but I thought
again,
he had a 1-year ministry.
yeah, because their Sabbaths would coincide like
But not,
every, what was it, like 2 or 3 months or 4 months, something like that. They would have coinciding Sabbaths because the lunar Sabbaths, they change every month. So it's not the same each year. So every month their Sabbath would change. I'm not technically sure how that works. I think Ellie would be able to explain that a bit better than me.
It would be at least 2 months of the year. And
really?
And I think maybe 3. Because my late husband and I, we would keep track of the calendar. And so, yep.
Can I say something? I just got a question.
Yeah.
You remember in the temple when they were trading on the Sabbath and Messiah went in there and he just overthrew the tables and was angry? Do you think maybe it was the real Sabbath and not their Sabbath? So they were doing it on a day that they didn't consider a Sabbath in the temple, but it was truly the Zadok Sabbath. That's why he was angry that there was a market there.
Totally.
Wow. Yeah.
Just
that
a thought.
Make sense. No, that makes sense. And
Because they really
say,
wouldn't be buying or selling on the Sabbath, would they, if it was the real Sabbath? But if Messiah was like, you guys are sitting here buying and selling on
his right?
Yeah, the real one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was against the whole trading thing as well. I mean, there would be no. They were taking advantage of people, just like in Amos. They were taking advantage of the poor.
I think it was a multi-level thing going on there. Like there's so many things culminated. That's why he was so angry and upset. Like it was about, no doubt it was about the wrong Sabbath day, but it was about the trading, the exchanging, taking advantage of people, all these things just in one. So he braided that whip.
all in the name of our Heavenly Father, who loves them, and they're scared to death of him. And I thought another thing about that braided whip and all that. Whatever his anger looked like, it doesn't look like some of us, because the only way that he could do that and still have all the children hanging around afterwards is that it was speaking to their conscience, and they knew there was a problem. Because if he was angry and and turning over tables the way we think of it, everybody would have cleared out. Remember thinking this: when my anger is like his, when he got angry, he looked around and he healed a man. Hey, that's the kind of anger I want. Productive, healing anger.
Yeah, and we forget, we got this New Testament. We just think that this is it sometimes. But what do we got? Only 4 apostles in there writing? What is it? 4 or 5 apostles?
Yeah, there's Mark, Luke, Matthew, John, Peter.
Yeah. What happened to the rest of them writings? What happened? Didn't Messiah write anything down? Where's his writings? So we really only have half of the story. We have what the usurpers want us to have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was about to bring up too, because everyone says, "Oh, there's no calendar issues in the New Testament and this and that." Well, they could have been edited out and given to us without that to make it seem like it wasn't some big deal. And, there wasn't even really a calendar too known until the Dead Sea Scrolls came out. And they're all about the calendar issues. Like, hey, we ain't coming to the temple until you do this, this, and that about the calendar. And, they're solid on it. That's why they had their own community in the wilderness. They're like, nah, you guys are the sons of darkness. We'll stay over here. You guys keep your stuff over there.
Yeah, those Dead Sea Scrolls certainly ended a lot of lies about, the fallen angels being the sons of Seth and, the Genesis 6 scenario that was evident in there, finding the Book of Enoch and also the Sabbath, the true calendar. And it just was all meant to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So, for those who say, oh, well, Messiah didn't talk about, well, where's Messiah's writings himself? Huh? Because I guarantee they're in there. We just are only fed what they want us to know.
Exactly. They took out the books that were easiest out of the Bible, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're hidden somewhere in the Vatican, and for sure, if not destroyed, because if we had writings of the Messiah, it would be a closed case, but we don't. Something to pray for.
So that brother the other night we were speaking to, he has been to the Vatican, and he actually confirmed a lot of what we talk about on here, plus more. We gave him the link to join and everything. I don't see him, but he had the same thoughts and ideas. He's actually he saw the Sabbath day the same day we do, and he knows nothing about the calendar yet. So, but yeah,
the Arco.
Go ahead.
That's all right. Oh no, you keep going when you finish, because it's another. That's just about the Arco.
He was confirming, because he went down there I guess he was studying under some priest that was there at the Vatican. So he went there and he had access to the library. And he said he didn't even go to all of it and it creeped him out. But he saw, Paleo Hebrew scrolls, Paleo Hebrew Bibles. And he was saying they had a Bible from each century for hundreds of years. And each century the Bible will get smaller and smaller and smaller until we have what we have today. But he was saying a whole lot more too, but I don't quite remember all of it. But it was just confirming of what, we also speculate as well. Because we know there's 250 miles of bookshelves or something down there. And this gentleman was just confirming all that. And it would be great to have him on to give his testimony as well. But we'll see how that goes.
I've got the Arco volumes, which were from the Vatican and transcribed into English. The Arco volumes are all the letters from 2,000 years ago. It's got the crucifixion of the Roman soldiers. So it was Pontius Pilate's letter to Julius Caesar on the crucifixion of Christ, where he describes what he looks like and what the people around there look like. There's letters to Rome from the Sanhedrin, where they go out and looking for, Messiah, and go and see Mary, Miriam, and Joseph, and give descriptions of what they look like as well in there. And so many letters in there. So that's all there, and that's really, really interesting. The Arco volumes, it's called.
Is there a link online to it that you have?
I don't know. I'll just have a look at the actual book. I actually sent away because my mum used to have the insert of just on the crucifixion of Messiah, and so I wanted to get the whole book. I'm just trying to see where I have it. You keep talking, I suppose, and I'll have a look where I might have it in my bookshelf. I'm just having a look. No, you can bought it on eBay or something like that. Yeah. I've also got the book of Tefi, which was the daughter of Zedekiah, who was taken over to England. She wrote a whole book, and it's all very poetic. She married in from one line Pharaohs to the line of Zara. After the temple was destroyed, Jeremiah took her over there. There's so much. There are writings that they were around, and it's the Book of Tephi, Tephi, Arco volumes. If you just Google in the Arco volumes, ARCHO, it should come up. I just don't know if I've got the bookcase.
Right. They say Tia Tafi or Tia Tafai.
Yeah,
she was. Mm-hmm.
She was talking about the tender twig.
I'm sorry.
They refer to her in the Bible as the tender twig.
Right. And she was taken. She and her sister were taken by Jeremiah, and he married both of them into the other line that wasn't in Judah, that were in I think Great Britain.
Ireland.
I mean, it's fascinating. Yeah. Great Britain. And...
Scotland's named after Scotta. She stayed in Egypt, so obviously there were Hebrew people in Egypt. We think, oh no, she married an Egyptian. No, see, there must have been royal house of Judah in there as well. But she stayed for a reason, because they were in Egypt on a stop off. They went across, went down the bottom of Gibraltar, and Baruch was with them. And Baruch died at the bottom of Spain, around Gibraltar, and he was buried down there somewhere. And the hieroglyphics, if you go into on YouTube, there's a guy, he spells his name J-A-H, and if you just put Jeremiah's tomb in Ireland, he shows you the tomb. It's got hieroglyphics in there, then it has the story of the boat and the servants that they took and the women. It mentions her husband's name here. They dispersed over there a long time ago, like maybe even before the captivity in Egypt. If you consider that, you've got the tribes of Dan and the tribes of Naphtali, who were the sea merchants, who were always trading at sea, trading tin and copper, because I know that Arimathea, the uncle of Joshua, was a very rich man on tin in the tin fields of Cornwall. I know a lot about that story, and there's stories and legends of as a boy, Yeshua going with him across there and them building their first church in Glastonbury in the Isle of Avalon somewhere, which used to be an island, but then it filled in with soot. But train of thought across. Yeah, Jeremiah's tomb's over there. They call him something Fodler, the prophet, but his tomb's there, and it fits in. It's got the dates and everything, and the hieroglyphics fit in with her being there, and it joined the two lines together so that the line, it always says there will always be someone sitting upon the throne. Well, there is literally, even though they're probably illegitimate now, but that line was because Hezekiah's eyes were put out, his sons were killed, but when the Ark of the Covenant was hidden, that's when he hid all the stuff from the inner temple, the show table, the Ark of the Covenant, and everything. If you watch Ron Wyatt's videos, he found them, which I believe. Then he had the daughters underground, and they took them. They fled first to Egypt, across to Gibraltar, and then across there. And yeah, so there you go. That's my take on it. And I've got the chart. I actually have the raw chart of Judah with everything. It's downstairs at the moment, and it's got all the raw Judah right through Scandinavia, right through the ancient Britain, the Trojans. It's got all the names, and their names are all on there. You can go back and see. Even Robert the Bruce is on there. Remember from Braveheart?
Yeah.
His name's on there, and that. Yeah, Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun was not a Mongol.
Interesting. There's a chapter in Acts that speaks about Paul traveling to Britain.
Yes, chapter 29. They took that chapter out, the missing chapter, and he's met by, I think, Garcia meets him there, and a Druid. See, I believe the Druids were the Levitical priesthood over there, and they have twisted that and made up all these legends of of a cult. Merlin was probably a Levite, and they've twisted it all and made him to be an occultist and all that. I think the original Druids were the priesthood, and then it's gone out of whack because, you know, Satan gets a hold of everything and distorts it. They don't want you knowing about over there that he went there because he went to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Exactly. And I think there's a writing that I think it does